3 possible answers. I love it, I don't care enough to fight you on it, or no.
Yeah. Yeah. The middle one that's a sweet spot for challengers sometimes.
This goes out to the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. And it's hard, and it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dale Bush.
I wanted to start this episode a way we used to that we haven't done in a while, and I think that you personally, as well as listeners, are really missing.
Boy, am I.
And that is a story from today.
Sort of figured. Go on.
We were not super busy at this point, but we had a few high-volume tickets in a row. And one of those people was Marco Bahena, who has...
Weird, just naming names.
A habit... Well, I mean, it's because it's not about him.
Okay.
But he's a guy that routinely buys half of his pile.
Yes, it's true.
So I took that opportunity to show Gina how, with the new register system, we have to take items out of a transaction. And I wanted to try something new. I wanted to try flagging the items he was putting back, and then going into one of the commands at the bottom. And there's 2 commands. There's remove, and there's delete, parentheses, DEL, or...
Clear contents.
Clear contents. Well, if you hit clear contents, it clears everything, not just the things you have flagged. So I learned that.
Yep.
Did you already know that?
Yep.
By doing the same thing?
I don't know if I did the same thing or just sort of figured that that's how they would phrase it.
So you and I had this discussion earlier.
Yeah.
And I wasn't exactly clear on how to do it, but so I had to pull everything back up, and it was all there.
Right.
Didn't delete anything, it just cleared the screen.
Right.
So I just had to go into each item one at a time and hit delete. Hit action, hit delete. Hit action, delete.
You could have flagged them on the left side.
Yeah.
And then just hit the delete key, and it would have taken out anything that was flagged at the time.
But I remember hitting delete from the main screen and removing it from the account.
It would only do that, and this is the thing, is it would only remove it from the account besides going to void special order line as a separate button command, is if you left it in the transaction and then voided the transaction.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like that's
I do remember you saying
takes
that.
it out of their system entirely.
Oh, hey, can you slide that over for me?
The chair?
Yeah.
Certainly.
I need to prop up. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Got to keep that leg up.
Sure.
So at that time, and as I was showing Gina this, there was a customer who's like, can I get some help? So Gina's like, sure, I'll help you. Or he's like, can someone help me find something? Like in a really annoyed voice.
Sure.
So she took care of him. And then the next person to get rung up was Frank Davis. And there was now that the screen shows us the item count as a whole, that is a quick shortcut.
Okay.
And for me.
Sure.
I don't think you use it that way, but...
no, because, I mean, we've had instances where, the right number of items is on the screen, but they are not the correct actual items.
Well, it wasn't the right number.
Okay.
So I did a quick count, I'm like, okay, now I have to go through one at a time.
Right.
And the guy that Gina had helped was behind Frank. And I figured out there was a Justice League Dark that wasn't on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, all taken care of. Frank buys his stuff. And then this guy comes up with a weird assortment of things.
Okay.
He was looking for a Spider-Man stuff for a 3-year-old nephew.
Sure.
But as Gina related after the fact, he kept saying, no, I want an actual comic. No, I want an original comic. Because she was showing him stuff in Sidekicks.
Sure.
He wanted an original comic. But I guess the Spider-Man Adventures weren't original comics.
News to IDW.
So it's interesting that he wanted a Spider-Man comic but bought a Batman patch. But anyway, he bought some stuff. And then as he goes to leave, he stops at the side counter. He's like, boy, just my luck, huh? And I go, excuse me?
Sorry?
Getting stuck behind that guy. I don't understand. Well, I was in a hurry, and I was behind that guy. What, did he spend like $600? No. You spent over $100. He spent not much more than that. And if you're in such a hurry, why are you staying here to tell me that you were annoyed that it took forever?
Yeah.
And then he just like, of course didn't say that.
Of course.
But he's like, yeah, that guy spent a ton. You know, if I was just here like, 4 minutes earlier, I don't know, or didn't spend as much time browsing.
Yeah. I mean, this doesn't seem like a huge deal for someone to take time out of their schedule to complain about.
Yeah. So, and at that time, Frank was still in the store.
Uh-huh.
And Frank's like, I would have let him cut in front of me. And I said, I wouldn't have.
Yeah. Why would Frank need to do that?
Yeah. He didn't need, it was very kind of him to say.
Yeah.
But he did not.
People can wait their turns.
Yeah. So, yeah, he got stuck behind 2 transactions that did take a little bit of time.
Sure.
But
it's not like you were just like sitting around,
Yeah.
You were actively working through the transactions and moving on to the next person and the next person. Sometimes it happens. I don't know. I mean, I can't believe this is the first time this guy has ever encountered a line at a store.
It's just his luck. It's just his luck.
This wasn't something that happened in the world. This was something happening to him.
So one of the things that Frank had to say today was congratulations to you and to I on this, the 500th episode
That we have not recorded yet.
of Contest of Challengers.
I guess technically by starting this, we could end it right now and say this is episode 500. So yeah,
I mean,
congratulations,
it's
Patrick.
almost already longer than your Vincent Chung interview.
It's true.
Episode 2.
Yeah, wow.
There's a callback for you.
Oof.
Also, Mitchell Davies sends congratulations.
Ah, thanks, Mitchell.
Those are the people that said it in advance.
That was nice of them.
And I wanted to just give people a general update on store stuff since it's been a little while, and people always ask how the store is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the store is doing fine.
Yeah.
The store would be doing better if we didn't have what I now refer to as the albatross of blue hanging around our necks.
Our old River North anchor.
Yes.
Yep.
And the amount of, I don't even mean stress or physical toll
Uh-huh.
it took on us, just the sheer financial hit
Yeah, sunk a lot of money into something that did not even
we
last 6
took
months.
and are taking.
Uh-huh.
It'll be a long time
Yeah.
before. So if we didn't have that, we would be doing
Great.
pretty well.
I would say great. I mean, just, it's not like we wouldn't have other difficulties or other things that were a concern, but I mean, if I'm thinking about the amount of things that are costing us money without providing any return, River North is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
It
And
is such an amount of money, past, present, and future, that is just for nothing. I mean, for basically nothing. That's just essentially money we owe now.
it's interesting to me that we're almost at the year mark of that podcast we did in that store. Like, hey, we
Yeah.
have a store. Like a year ago now,
Last summer.
we were in
Last
the
summer
midst.
was a lot of fun, man.
Wasn't it? When we were going up to Printers Row,
Yeah.
getting hamburgers at Hacks
And ice cream bars.
and ice cream bars at
Gordo's.
Gordo's, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like just visiting.
It was a fun time.
It was.
Because everything was, I mean, I don't want to say everything was more optimistic, but we were definitely working from a place of like being excited about the future challengers and being excited about the possibilities and a way to kind of level up our own personal finances by, taking on a lot of extra work and something that was, even in the most optimistic appraisals was like, this is going to be months of basically 24/7 work. But there was a sense of like, it's going to be worth it. It's going to make something bigger than what we have now. It's going to allow us to expand our vision of what we want to do. And then, yeah, man, a year later, it's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it all went wrong. It just all went wrong.
Yeah.
Some of it because of us and some of it completely out of our hands. I mean, just things where it's like, yep, boy, if I could do it over. And the thing that sometimes people kindly will say things like, well, you learned a lot. And then when you open the next store, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, I don't want to say never to things. Like, we've said no to things that then we ended up figuring out, like, oh, we could try that. There will be no second store for challengers. We tried it. It did not work. It nearly killed us. It will take us years to even get to the point where we were summer of 2019.
Yeah.
Essentially to get back to the place where that's even financially reasonable. And at that point, we're going to be years older than when we were killing ourselves to put together the second store before.
And I wasn't nearly as physically broken last summer.
No. Yeah.
I was only slightly physically broken.
Yeah. We're both older. We're both more used up. I think we're both way less inclined to say, yes, we can kill ourselves for 24 hours, 7 days a week for months on end because we think this is going to pay off. Now it's like, well, Jesus, what if it doesn't? Like, before that was a thing of like, well, a lot of things could happen, but, you know, and I'll, as always with talking about River North, like, a lot of the situation of having to shut it down was because of COVID.
Yes.
It completely changed the equation in a way that we could not continue doing it. Had it not been for COVID, I guarantee you that store would still be something we were putting time and money into. Absolutely. Did not feel like shutting it down, did not feel like it was a lost cause.
Yeah, we were not, it wasn't the plan at all.
Yeah.
Also, on the one hand, we would have had a tough time running it with my injury, but
Right.
I wouldn't have been injured
Correct.
if there wasn't COVID.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
it does balance out.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, yeah, I cannot conceive of a way that we would ever approach a second store for Challengers ever again. Not just like financially, which again is going to take years, or physically, which is something where we are just not equipped to do that. I mean, we moved heaven and earth to do it the last time, and I don't know that we feel like taking that on again anytime soon. But more than that, just philosophically, there were a lot of things where we were trying to figure out, like, what would a second Challengers be like, and how could we kind of achieve that. I don't want to say we weren't happy with it, but it created a lot of different decision-making processes that I don't think, looking back on, we feel were the best versions of what we were doing.
Well, you know what? I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because you're already...
Am I treading on your questions?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
You've already answered one of them.
I'll answer it again.
And you're in the midst of answering a second one.
I've already forgotten what my question,
So-
what I just answered, so I probably
Fine.
could come up with a completely
Fine.
different
But
one.
the reason I brought it up was it had been hanging over our head what we're going to do and how we're going to get out of this for a while. And literally before we started recording,
Minutes earlier.
we just signed off on the proposal to relieve ourselves of that store. And
Well, yeah.
it's eventually. It's
Yeah.
a situation that nobody's happy with.
No.
We think we're paying way too much.
Yep.
The landlord thinks we're paying way too little.
Yeah.
But we had attorneys involved on each
Yeah.
end,
The attorneys are probably happy with it.
negotiations back and forth, and I was a little more than disappointed with this outcome because
Sure.
basically it was, hey, they say this, we say this. They say this, we say this. And then they're like, no. Like, I thought our last, not pitch, but our last
Counteroffer?
was acceptable. And basically, they came back and said, no, $10,000 more.
Mm-hmm.
And our lawyer even said, you're not going to get any better than that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, without getting too much into the details on this, we've signed another legally binding contract that we hopefully can afford at penalty of severe financial
Consequence? Distress?
humiliation. There's
There's no humiliation in
living
trying
in a
to
box
achieve
outside Challengers.
a loftier goal.
Yeah, this is a thing where
Would you live in a box outside of Challengers? Wouldn't you want to be as far away from Challengers as possible?
no, I'd like an easy commute.
That constant...
The main
I didn't realize you'd be living in a box but still working at the store.
yeah, probably for somebody else.
Okay.
But no, the River North situation is boy oh boy. Was hoping for something way better, was afraid of something way worse, and what we have is just like, well, that is a huge financial drain for X number of months. That's super great.
Yeah, it'll yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, it's no longer a waiting game of
It's no longer a question mark.
Yeah. And at
Question
this
I got answered.
also this week, because we're good at signing away our lives. We have signed.
Jokes on them. My life's not worth anything.
We signed an extension, a lease extension for Challengers. I was going to say Red, but that's all there is.
The only Challengers that you can go to now.
And we signed a 5-year extension.
Yeah, I feel okay about that. I mean,
Yeah.
we certainly proved that store can weather a pandemic. So at
And-
least that's something that we're aware of.
So Challengers Red will be in its current spot through 2025.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat, right?
Yeah, a few improvements that the building's doing for us that we had requested that I'm honestly pretty excited about. It's something that when it's done, we'll talk more about it, and you'll probably be super aware of it, but it's something that has long bothered me, but also because of doing a second store and just our general financial instability has been kind of out of our reach. So the property willing to do that for signing a new lease works out for me.
So now there's two other things that I want to do immediately, since like, all right, this is our home for at least 5 more years,
Yeah.
well, 5.5 more years.
Yeah.
That there is zero money for, especially with everything we just signed.
Yep.
And it's like,
We'll probably still do it anyway.
God, but I mean, I literally don't know how we can. Do you know what those two things are?
Do you want me to say them out loud?
Sure.
The carpet.
Yeah.
The windows.
Yep.
Yep.
Carpet and windows.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is apropos of nothing. This is something I was thinking about recently. I think because we were working on the next year's sales shirt
Yeah.
and approaching somebody, and I thought, God, you know what? I don't even know what it would cost, and I literally don't even know how to approach it.
Yeah.
But my dream for doing the windows,
Yeah.
Guru Hero.
Wow.
I would love to approach them about like what would doing our windows look like? What would one long piece of artwork from them, because they've done so many characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would that end up looking like? But I wouldn't. They are not in America.
Right.
I don't even know who their people are.
Well, they don't do commissions, but this wouldn't be a commission.
This wouldn't be a commission.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't like, hey, do me an 11 by 17 headshot of somebody. This is, we are hiring you to do an art job.
The problem is I don't want to start a conversation now.
Right.
Because we're in no position to pay them.
Right.
And honestly, paying them isn't necessarily the issue. It's getting the vinyl decals.
I mean, that's something we
installation.
could solve. We could solve that. I think the money. That's the thing. Like I've literally no idea. Guru Hero does a lot of work for a lot of people. This isn't like commissioning Alex Ross to do a giant mural for your office.
Right.
That's a level of expense where it's like if you have to ask how much it's going to cost, you can't afford it. Guru Hero though does work for a lot of different companies, and they've done work for design work for different toy companies and stuff. Like
sure.
They've got figures from Mafex. They've got figures. I ordered a set of small, like basically they're superhero adventures covers or whatever, like those style superhero figures. They're doing small, like gotcha capsule figures of those. There's 2 series I completely missed, and the third one was listed on Big Bad Toy Store. So I'm like, yes, I will get that. Guru Hero, anything, sure. But it's just a thing of like, I don't know if...
Have you gotten the first?
No,
series?
I didn't even know there were 3 until I saw a listing on Big Bad Toy Store for Series 3, and I went, what? And, I mean, you can find a few random figures on Amazon Japan, but, I mean, nobody that I found domestically is listing Series 1 or Series 2.
So are these just, like, generic heroes, or...?
It's like Captain America, and, I mean, it's Marvel superheroes. These are officially licensed Marvel figures that were released for the Japanese market.
Okay.
All based on Guru Hero designs.
And they're little gotcha guys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big they are, but they're just little vinyl figures. I think they might even be blind box, maybe. I don't know.
I can't believe I haven't heard about that.
Yeah.
From you.
Well, when they come in, I'll probably have a few extras. Maybe they'll be in the store. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that is... I don't want to say bucket list, but that's the thing where, like... that's the thing, if we ever achieve that, I'd be like... I don't even care what happens to the store now. I will always be proud of it because we had that.
Yes, but wouldn't you want to do the carpet first?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the carpet, it needs it way more. I'll be honest with you, like we've talked about the windows before. I don't think the window art is that bad. I don't think it's deteriorated that much.
Okay.
I think it's still pretty solid. I see the things that when you talk about the things you're unhappy with it because of the sun fading and because of it being in the windows for, as with anything of ours, substantially longer than it should have been.
Yeah, yes.
I think it looks really good, and I think it's still pretty eye-catching, and it's doing its job. But if we reached a point where we were ready to do new artwork, I would love, to the degree that like I would figure out ways to get the money to do Guru Hero.
We also, them do the art. At this point, need to do new just Challenger signs.
It's one of them in the middle, yeah. One of the problems is that the one deck that's above the store has like water running down from it
constantly, yeah.
And it's not only like done a lot of damage to the graffiti film on the outside of the store, but it's done damage to the sign above that.
Yeah,
like that's the one where you see a lot of like it's been like washed out a bit, is because literally water has been running over that for years.
Yep.
That one specific spot, that's where the water runs down from. It does not run down evenly. It runs down in one little 10-inch wide area.
Do you remember when we did the current iteration of the windows? We did the window raffle to raise money from it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that we would want to do that again.
Well, I mean, I don't know that you want to do this. We could always do a GoFundMe for it. We did a Kickstarter for the gallery.
We did, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Like, I don't want to do GoFundMe like, hey, help us stay in business.
Yeah,
but...
well, no. But, I mean, this is the thing. Like, little store improvements like this, I think it's within the range of what people feel like they could probably donate money for. It's going to something specific. It has a very specific goal.
It would have to be GoFundMe because Kickstarter would not approve it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's in the GoFundMe terms or not.
Probably. I mean, people do store improvements and stuff off of that. I mean, worst case scenario, we could come up with something in store or online. There's donation buttons through any number of vendors that you could probably just put on a website and go, hey, if you want to throw some money at us for this, like, it will go towards this thing to get it done.
I think it's paypal.me/challengers.
Is that right?
Just give us money that way. Paypal.me/challengers.
But I recall once upon a time you and I both worked for a chain of stores that needed a new door for one of its locations, and there was the door raffle.
Yep.
It's that simple. I mean, you could just do that again. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Did you help draw the name for that?
For the door raffle?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Because we did it in Downers.
Okay.
I was specifically there.
I might have. I honestly don't remember.
Remember Joe Fielder?
Sure.
He was there. He was the only person there that day, actually waiting to see who won. It was not him. What I did to make it dramatic was it wasn't the first name I picked. Mm-hmm. It was the last.
Okay.
So I pulled every name out, and the last name in there was the winner.
Sure.
Poor Joe Fielder was the second to last.
Oh, heartbreaking.
Right? Yeah, so I don't know. Even new carpeting is beyond our budget at the moment.
I don't know about that. It's certainly something where I would feel a little weird trying to do it before the coronavirus ends.
Yeah.
Not just for like logistic reasons of like we need a bunch of people to help us move things because you have to get everything
that is
off
a
the
big
carpet.
concern.
That's a concern, but to me the bigger concern is like I genuinely don't want to put, despite just signing as we found out, legally binding lease for 5 more years of payments to our landlord at 1845 Northwestern Avenue. I don't want to put any money into something where we don't know what the future of retail looks like because who knows what's going to happen over the next 12 months. I don't know. Hopefully good things. Wouldn't count on it. So yeah, I mean, it's something like I think next summer I think we could really have a conversation about things like the carpet and the windows and investigating how we would want to proceed on those. I wouldn't want to say just like, oh, we can't afford it. Like, well, let's figure out, what's available to us, both, liquidity, like what we actually have and can do versus what, avenues are open to us to try and generate that money and how much would it cost. And,
I mean, there's things we could attempt.
Yeah.
But it's not worth trying right now.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely not. No. Minimum 6 months away from even, contemplating something like that.
It's funny. We talked earlier, a few episodes ago, about how the store doesn't look the way we want it to look. Mm-hmm. And last week, I thought I did something that would, really make a big difference for you, and you didn't notice.
I'm so busy these days. I don't want
to.
I don't want to get off on a tangent, but Jesus Christ! The days that I was at the store this week, I said something to you the other day, Wednesday, which was that I've been thinking, 6 hours of a work day for days like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's not enough to get everything done. We've talked on previous episodes where the extra 2 hours that we're not at the store is where a lot of projects will get done, and now by not being there, those projects don't get done, or they get pushed to a different day. And then I was at the store 8 hours on Wednesday, and I was still right up against the buzzer. I was rushing to get things done before the day ended.
Yes, but there was a huge number of customers in.
There's always something.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's a store.
I know. Today, when I wasn't expecting anything, we got a whole bunch of deliveries. Uh-huh. It's like, oh, these need to be taken care of right away.
Yeah.
We got a Diamond Box. We got Penguin Random House. Yeah. We got Attaboy.
Certainly Wednesday
was... We got Converse.
Thank you. Wednesday was, a diamond delivery that we don't normally get in on Wednesdays. Usually they show up on Thursdays. There was the Poster Emporium order. There was a very long conversation that both you and I had to have with Southern Hobby for all of the Hasbro pre-orders for 2021.
Guess who called today?
Oh, golly.
Yeah. Guess what you'll be doing Monday?
Checking in an order from Southern Hobby?
Uh-huh.
Anything good?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Some Robit toys?
No, really?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So a bunch of Marvel Legends stuff.
Okay, that's cool.
But, I don't know, stuff.
Sure.
Stuff. Nothing to be excited about.
Okay.
And some dice.
Okay.
Not a huge order, but like 2 boxes.
Sure.
2 cases of Deadpool figures.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. You were wondering about those. There you go.
I mean, not wondering, but I'm glad that happened, I guess.
Got resolved?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, because of our extracurricular activities last night, I usually start my lunar FOCs on Thursdays.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure if Columbus Day counts as a holiday. You know
Right.
how you got to get your orders in on a Thursday.
Sure.
So I wound up not doing them last night because at the time we got home, I thought, I can do it. Then I'm like, oh no, Dal needed to log in. And I didn't want to like have to message you and be like, are you logged in?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I was working on some stuff. You could have told... Nothing that was mission critical. Like, if I would have known you needed to use the system, I wouldn't have done it. It wasn't a big deal.
Well, they still accepted them today, but I always forget how extremely difficult it is to do that at the store
Sure.
because you have to stop to ring people up to answer questions. The phone was nonstop today, and it was 70% garbage.
Yeah, it always is. I
Yeah.
mean, we've talked about getting rid of our landline at the store for a long time because it's so many of the phone calls are auto dialers, are people pretending to be different companies, are someone trying to sell you something, someone trying to sell you their comic books. The amount of like actual customers that we deal with on the phone on a daily basis is like less than 25%.
But there were some legitimate customer questions. There were
Sure.
people that,
There's always somebody.
while it's easy to find out if we're open to the general public through any other channel on the internet, they wouldn't have done it.
No, I mean, there's places that I don't trust what I'm seeing online, so I call them up just to find out for sure.
Get this. So I'd called somebody with a special order on Wednesday, and I got the message their voicemail wasn't set up.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, well, great. We're just going to hold on to this book forever.
Right.
They came in today and said, yeah, you called me about a book I had on hold? So I'm like, yeah, okay. I pull it up, and I'm like, oh, wait, it says that... Because I'm like, oh, yeah, I was the one that called that number. Then I looked at it and said, oh, it says that your voicemail's not set up. And he said, oh, I didn't know it was not set up. I was on the phone with somebody else. When you called, I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't answer it. You know, I screen my calls, and I said, fine, we all do.
Yeah.
And then he said, but afterwards I looked up the number and saw that it was Challenger's and figured, oh, my book was in. I need to go get that.
Neat.
And I thought, that is more heads up than a lot of people are.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually, if I get a phone call on my cell phone and I don't know the number and I don't answer it and they don't leave a message, I don't investigate
Yeah,
it.
I don't either. I definitely don't either.
I'm just like, oh, that's probably someone I didn't need to
yeah.
talk to.
Yeah. But yeah, so that Voyage to the Stars was picked up.
That's great.
Yeah.
Very nice Rebecca Isaacs cover on that issue.
I lost track of where I was going.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Happens a lot. Long day. Very, very hectic day.
Sure.
My point was I was trying to do the lunar FOCs, and I was bouncing between computers because I didn't want to log in and have to remember passwords and everything on the right computer when I can just do it on the left.
Right, I do that too.
But there's so many issues where the sales data isn't there.
Yeah.
I had messaged you about Dark Knight's Death Metal, and then you're like, don't worry, there'll be more. There were like 4 more books in that order.
Yep.
It's like, oh, we just never ordered, there's no record of this book, or this book is in there, but it says its sales are like 4 copies.
Right. Like, I'm already finding, because we have a bunch of people who, because Rorschach #1 is coming out this Wednesday, and it was in 2 of our emails, we're getting a lot of like, oh, add me for Rorschach.
Yeah.
Which is why I bumped up the numbers really high when I did that FOC, because Patrick was in the hospital.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that as I'm adding it into...
FYI, we were shorted Rorschach this week.
Oof.
1 copy.
Oh, that's the one that we were going to sell the most of. What I'm noticing as I'm adding Rorschach to people's accounts in Comic Suite is that it's only adding issue 1. It's adding issue 3, which is in the new catalog, but it doesn't do that on the screen.
Why?
So when issue 2 comes in, no one's going to be down for it. So the good news is, like, if someone special orders it, it should populate. But anyone who's down for it as a subscription, I'm going to have to generate that separately, which is fine. I do a version of that already. But it's, again, just one of those weird quirks with DC stuff and Comic Suite.
Had a club member today say...
Like all the things that you just changed in FOCs, I don't know what's going to happen when we try to receive those books at different quantities that are in the system. I don't know.
I had a club member say, hey, can you sign me up for all the rest of the Dark Knight's Death Metal one-shots? And I said, I honestly don't know if we can.
I mean, one way or another you will. Like, we haven't signed anyone up for the point issues of Amazing Spider-Man yet, but when those start showing up on the weekly invoice, I will probably just take a minute to add people then and there.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to do it for every issue in advance, because we've had to do that before. It's a huge pain in the ass. Because of the way that the Comic Suite is freaking out about adding people to the Ten of Swords chapters, like I'm only midway through the November shipping issues for that. Enough to, I think, be caught up with where FOCs are, but I have to do kind of the second half of the month this coming week if I want to make sure that everything's in the system for when those books hit FOC. So when that's over, then I'll probably have to start doing things like the Spider-Man point issues. Like, great.
Yay.
Yay, indeed.
All right, so I'm just going to jump into it now because we're, again, getting close to you answering another one of my questions.
Sorry.
The gimmick of episode 500 was going to be 5 questions we each ask each other about the store or retail or the comics industry.
Mm-hmm. And then we each answer our own questions. You know, I would want us to each give our own answers.
Oh, I did not agree to that part.
No, I mean, I honestly, I don't remember a lot of what I wrote for questions, so I don't know if I can even answer the ones that I'm giving you.
Yeah,
But
very
we'll give it a
disappointed
shot.
that the well-known comics journalist that I reached out to moderate this episode, which, by the way, for anyone wondering, not David Harper, since I had just done a thing with David Harper for my 30th retail anniversary.
Right.
I didn't want to bug him again.
He's not like the in-house challengers interviewer.
So I think I will just start with a question because you were half answering it now.
Okay.
Are you, and don't, I'm going to say happy, so don't jump in and say no. Are you happy
I'm
with
happy.
the division of labor for challengers?
Yeah, I frequently feel like I get the better end of that stick, I'll be honest with you. One of the things that I don't know if I would use the word guilty, but I feel less good about is how much of the financial stuff has either through accident or design fallen on your shoulders. And I know that that's not only incredibly stressful, but just juggling that is the reason that Challengers is still in business. Kind of making that budget stretch is something that I think you are incredibly skilled at, and something that if it were up to me, I don't know if we would be coming into, you know, the end of our 13th year or whatever we're on. I like doing a lot of the things in the store. If we were to do a more formal division of labor where I did the in-store stuff and you had like an office somewhere and never came into the store, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, but I don't think that is
I don't think
challengers.
No, absolutely not. I'm not saying like that's my preference. I'm saying if that was something where you decided that you wanted to do that, I would be okay with that because I like doing. I was almost to answer this question earlier when we were doing the lockdown, and you know, for some of it you weren't feeling well, and some of it you were hurt, and I was going into the store a lot and kind of just working on my own. I got so much done. I got so many things done, so many projects I was able to work on.
Sure, but also the
finish.
store was closed.
But I mean, even then, like, it's not like I wasn't helping customers. We had a lot of people coming for pickups and stuff that needed to be mailed out.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like there was no, you know, retail elements. There were, but I was able to do all these other things and really concentrate on that stuff and felt like I was accomplishing a lot. I like the things that I do in the store, and I don't feel like I'm doing more than you in any sense. I think we've found roles for ourselves that hopefully is something we both feel comfortable doing. I would love to hear your answer to this question.
If I think you're happy with the division, yes, I do.
Are you happy with it?
I think that this is a situation where you and I each feel the same about ourselves.
Okay.
Like, I don't think I do as much as you do.
Oh, crazy.
I love the same things that you love. I love making displays. I love changing things around. I feel very productive when there's things in the store we physically change.
Sure.
I feel less productive when it's like, oh, club got pulled. Which is the backbone of our store.
Yeah, I like doing... I mean, I don't want to say I like doing stuff like pulling club, especially now on Tuesdays where it's unpacking everything and then pulling club, which is what we both had to do when there were two stores, but you were the one who had to do Bucktown, and that feels insane to me now that you had to do all of that in
Oh my
one
God,
day.
it was so much work.
Oh my God, because
So much work.
I had,
and that
I
was
had
with DC.
Which in fairness, DC probably went faster then because it was all in the system.
Yeah, that's true.
Now 3 hours maybe to check DC orders and pull club and do all that, and that's over a couple days. I had River North to deal with as far as checking in and pulling club, and I was usually done with that before you opened Bucktown. It was, I mean, my day was so much easier. That said, I had to do two versions of the, like, take all of the new releases and then feed them into the comics wall, which is probably the job that I do every week that I don't want to say hate the most, but it's the one that is the most arduous.
Yeah, ever
Because
since
it
we
is-
switched over to the new comic wall.
He's moving every single spot,
Yeah.
and having to do that on 2 walls 2 days in a row is just like, by the time I was near like a third of the way done with the River North wall, which was the second wall I would do for the week, I mean, I wanted to burn it all down. I was the most frustrated I would be for the entire week at that point, because I'd still have 2/3 of it to go, and it's like, because one of the things that comes with that is the frustration of, I have to file so many books because none of this stuff sold.
Yeah.
And that was River North. Was like, oh, we got in 4 copies. Here's the 4 copies because no one touched it. And it's like, if we didn't move 4 copies, if we didn't move a single copy in week 1, these 4 are going to be sitting on this wall forever until we eventually liquidate them in Bucktown. So all this work I'm doing, moving them around, it's like deck chairs on the Titanic. It doesn't matter. Like, none of this is valuable. It's just busy work. So that was the thing that would drive me crazy. I will ask you this slight follow-up question.
Well, let me keep
sure.
answering. Like to get to what you just.
Yeah.
I'm speaking.
Oh.
Vice President, I'm speaking.
Uh-huh. This is your time.
I know how much
Reclaiming your time.
you do on that wall, because every week the books that are in front of the light switch are different.
They're all different. They all move around.
Earlier this Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
when you were finishing up Pulling Club,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a family in late, and I said, I was going to put the new books out, and you said, I haven't made spaces yet, and I gave you this look like, you think I can't make spaces? What I didn't realize was you hadn't gotten the backer cards out. Like,
Had not.
I'm like, I made spaces forever.
Right.
Like, I can put the books on the wall, but what you're saying was you didn't prep that,
Right. Well,
and I didn't realize that.
Specifically, what I guess should have gone into more detail in was, I mean, to do that, to pull all those cards, that is up and down every shelf for the entire wall, and you got a bum leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, in the same way that when I see you trying to do stuff where it's like, oh, let me get stuff on the bottom club boxes, it's like, if I'm nearby, let me get that. Like, let me do that at least for another
appreciate
month
that.
or so. So it wasn't that I didn't think you could do either one of those jobs so much as, like, physically, I would rather you not do the first part of the job, because it is a lot of bending down and reaching underneath and doing all that stuff.
But when we have the cart now, so
Yeah.
it's less.
Well, doing the second part,
Yeah,
you
sure.
could totally do that.
But I
just
didn't
putting
know.
things on
I
the
didn't know
shelves.
there was a first part that hadn't been done.
Yeah. Usually I would do that way earlier, but I didn't have time before the book.
No,
showed
I
up.
get it. I get it.
So here's a follow up. Were you still answering?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as the division of labor goes,
You're happy with it?
I hate how much of the computer stuff you have to do, and like I don't know how to do any of this DC stuff. Any stuff you're doing,
Sure.
I have no idea, and I see how stressed it makes you, and I want to take some of that burden off of you, but I can't.
Yeah, there's a thing where, and I would say I feel the same way about you and the financial stuff. I would love to take some of that on, but I think for both of us,
You could give me your stuff at the beginning of every month.
do you still want September's? I was going to do it today and I forgot.
Yeah.
I'll try and do it tomorrow. I will do it before you have a day off. But I think the situation for both of us, with me doing the computer stuff and the RMH and the comic suite and the octopus and all that stuff, and you doing the financial stuff, is I think I don't know that those processes would benefit from us both working on them simultaneously.
I don't mean simultaneously. I just mean I don't know how to do it. What if something happens to you?
Sure. I mean, same thing with like the financial stuff. Like, there's things that you do in like passwords and logins and stuff. Where I'm like, if he was incapacitated, I don't know how we would. I would very quickly have to get the Square money going someplace else because I don't know how to access some of that other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and that's something where I don't want to like give us a to-do list, but it's something. A resolution for 2021 is, I think, maybe not cross-training each other on these things, but maybe creating sort of like continuity documentation where it's like if something happens, one of us needs to be able to run the entire business.
Right. Okay.
And I don't think we've really accounted for that. And thankfully, like, when you were out of it, you were not, mentally incapacitated. You were just someplace where it's like, I can't work on this for a few days. And all of that stuff could wait. None of it was that big a deal.
Yeah.
But if something were to happen to either one of us where it's like, I don't know how to do this and he can't tell me, that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Okay, your follow-up.
Oh, so my follow-up was this. You specifically mentioned something that I do think about occasionally and I do feel bad about. You had mentioned that you like doing displays and stuff like that. And I feel like that's something where I frequently take the initiative to do that. And I don't know if that's something that you...
Well, we don't have a lot of display space, per se. And, like, I did the Black Panther display as it was. I did the Halloween one. Yeah. And these aren't displays. These are just throwing things on a shelf. Yeah. And I already said, I know what November's going to be. Yeah. That was more of like, we're getting stuck with some of these, but... Like, it's a good place for them, I think.
Is it something that when I do stuff like that, I mean, do you feel like I'm taking more of that off your plate than you would like?
Well, I mean, like, do you have a specific example of a thing you've done?
No, but I will usually do something where it's like...
like, I'll tell you this.
Like you'll say, this section needs work, and I will say, I will handle that, or I will take care of that, or whatever.
Well, like, when I do a poster order or a pin order, I'm looking forward to being the one to put those out and to merchandise that stuff.
Sure.
And half the time you do it, and like basically whoever is there the day it comes in does it.
Right.
But sometimes, like, I wanted to do that. And luckily for me, the Attaboy order came in today, so I did the buttons.
That's great.
But I had Gina do the pins. Sure. And she did different display things than I would do.
Right.
But I'm like, no, I'll leave it. Like, because some of them needed multiple hooks.
Yeah.
So she would do, like, Spider-Man head, Venom symbol, Spider-Man head, Venom symbol, and not just in a row.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know.
And there's also... So, like, I made all the empty hooks. I condensed stuff and said, all right, here's how many hooks you have. Keeping in my head that we still have a yesterday's pin order coming as well.
We do, yeah.
I know. After I said I would not order from them, I did.
Yeah, but I think it's reasonable to do so. Like, I mean, they have good pins. And
if you ever do a display and it's good, I'm never going to be like... I wanted to do that. No. It's just that I like that is some of the most fun stuff we get to do.
It is. It's true. I would feel bad about it sometimes because I feel like it's something that maybe we should both have input on, and it's largely input that comes after it's already been done, and then it's like, well, I don't.
But again, we don't have.
I don't want to veto that.
We don't have massive displays where the other person's like, man, I was looking forward to that. Like we have our things are set.
Yeah, and I think when we've done stuff that is maybe more of a major project, that always has a lot of discussion attached to it. Yeah. Like if we're doing a redesign on the store or rearranging where sections go,
definitely. I don't
that's
ever
a lot
feel
of
like there's not.
If someone has an idea on that, it's not just like I moved everything around. Like that's always your joke of like when one of us would go out of town. It's like, well, I'm going to change a bunch of stuff when you're gone. You're going to deal with it, but we never really do that. That's always a thing of, if I have something I want to do, like genre racking or stuff like that. It's like, okay, I have to pitch you on that. Sure. I have to look at you as someone who is skeptical and explain to you why I think this has merit, how it's going to work.
3 possible answers. I love it, I don't care enough to fight you on it, or no.
Yeah. Yeah. The middle one that's a sweet spot for challengers sometimes. It's something where it's like you were talking about the Attaboy order. I mean, I have never once in my life been like, but I want to put out the pins. I hate doing the pins. I hate them. I hate checking them in. I hate doing all that stuff.
Yeah,
if you're like, it's something I enjoy, like, great.
We got 4 new designs today, and I had to be like, ooh, which ones do I retire and put in the overflow boxes and, stuff like that.
This is all nicely led into my first question for you. Patrick, what's one thing in the store that you would love to do that you think I'd never let you do? Like, what's something that you've never even asked me if challengers could or should do because you're like, he'd never go for it?
More personal fun stuff. Like we have that one Spider-Man hanging. We do have the shelves that are behind the counter that have like, oh, hey, action figures of wrestlers or actors who have been to the store.
Sure.
Things like that. But do you remember when Rick had that massive action figure diorama hanging from the ceiling?
In DeKalb, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like something like that. Not to that scale.
Sure.
But fun stuff like that. But at the same time, that leads to too many, oh, can I buy those? Questions.
All the time.
Like the Turtles.
The wrestling figures. How often do we get people saying, like, oh, are you selling wrestling figures? And it's like, no, it's a decoration, and you have to explain it. And they get into it, and they're excited about it. But there's that moment of like, I know, that's like asking if you can buy, like, the counter or the door.
I think
you can't. We need those.
I think that this is not a comic store funk comparison, but I think sometimes our own personalities aren't reflected in the store as much as they could be, but they don't have to be. And I'm not saying that with examples of, oh, well, I would put up a Kiss poster,
right?
Which I do it every Christmas anyway.
Sure.
But like things like that. Like I think there's very Dal-centric things in your life that aren't represented in the store, but I don't know that they need to be.
Yeah, it's honestly not something I would want to do. Yeah. I remember back when we were first talking about challengers, and we hadn't really I think either settled on what the store was going to be, or maybe neither one of us had really been able to articulate to the other what we thought the store was going to be.
Oh my God, you're just leading into my next question.
But you had said that you wanted a like just talking about what a store could be. I think before you'd really even signed on, you'd said you'd asked if like could we do like a TARDIS door for the front door. And I remember right then thinking, like, I don't want to do that.
I got my TARDIS anyway.
You did, and it's great. But I mean,
it wasn't. It was a terrible idea. We should have never gotten it. It was way too big.
People loved it. It was there for years. I think it's fine.
No. I mean, like the actual full 3D TARDIS was too big.
Sure. I mean, live and learn.
Yeah.
But to the idea that we're not reflected in the store, like I feel like I am, because that's the sort of stuff. Like I like a cleaner experience. Like, very much my aesthetic for a comic shop is kind of what Challengers is.
I mean, I hope it is.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't... There's nothing of mine that I feel like I would... Again, like, the things I would want to do is, like, Guru Hero doing, like, the windows. Like,
right.
Chris G doing, like, really nice windows for us was something where I was a fan of his. You were a fan of his. We loved Mini Marvels. We liked G-Man. Like, he's a nice guy. It's something that we felt like that reflected our own interests in comics and what we like aesthetically about comics. And all the window art is that way. There was really nobody where it's like, well, this is just to get people in the door. Like, we approached people that we liked and were fans of and
had access to.
Yeah, and even people we didn't have
access to.
The
big reach was Takeshi Miyazawa.
Which we did. Like, we still have that Takeshi piece in the Sidekicks window, I think, right?
Yeah.
The Mary Jane piece?
Yeah, we reached out to Colleen Coover because we liked her fun stuff.
Yeah, again, it's just fun stuff like that. So
those are the people that we didn't know.
So I think that's how we integrate our own personal styles and our own personal interests into the store, and how that maybe isn't as much as, you know, wearing Bears stuff on Bears game days, or like a bunch of Kamen Rider paintings or whatever. Like, that stuff I don't feel like would be appropriate for the store, but shaping the store in a way that is the books I like and the stories I like and the creators I like. I mean, that's kind of the element.
So what's your answer to that question?
Boy, this is one that I honestly don't remember. What's the one thing that I'd love to do that I don't think you'd let me do? God, I remember one thing that we had sort of talked about before Sidekicks became Sidekicks, when the gallery was winding down.
Ice cream stand?
A coffee shop for your sister.
You know I am lactose intolerant and diabetic, so both of those things.
Yes, you hate ice cream. It's true.
It's right.
You never get ice cream because it's so bad for you.
So never eat it at all.
Never even say, we should have stopped at that ice cream place when you drive past it.
I got robbed.
Not because of us
being there. No, it got robbed.
Or us not being there.
Right. We didn't even know it existed at the time it got robbed.
Yeah. But anyway, when we were talking about the gallery going away, and I was going to suggest Sidekicks, but you didn't know that I was going to suggest Sidekicks yet, and I think you were a little, bummed about having to kind of confront the idea that the gallery was not something that we were going to be able to keep doing.
Yeah, and I think you let me keep it longer than you wanted to.
No, I loved it. I love the gallery.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a regret, but I wish that had proven itself more.
I miss it,
love
but
being able
obviously
to do those.
Sidekicks is
financially way better.
1,000% a better
But,
use of that space for our community.
But I mean, not to get off track, but I love doing those opening nights. I love the promotion. I love doing the big window prints of an artist that was going to be coming to town, and doing all the logistics for getting the print and hanging the art, and just that part of it. There's things that I look back on when we're looking back on the years of doing Challengers, where it's like, oh, we don't do those anymore. And it's like, God, those were really fun. It was really fun to do some of those big parties and do the opening nights, and how enjoyable those were. And obviously that's completely off the table due to coronavirus. But even before that, we weren't really doing as much stuff like that. A lot of it was diminishing returns. We tried doing them and people didn't show up.
And they cost money.
Stop doing them. But that's a thing where I can see us maybe trying to mount stuff like that again sometime in the future, because A, I miss it. B, we haven't been able to do stuff like that in a while. And C, I think it's maybe time for it to come back, even in small doses. But before I had said, I think we should do a younger reader's room. You had said, oh, you're not going to say a toy store, are you? Because that was the thing that we had maybe talked about as doing for a space. I don't know if it was if the gallery went away or just a thing.
There was a time period where you're talking about carrying a lot more.
Making that into a dedicated toy space, going through a lot more vendors and stocking a lot more toys. And I wasn't going to suggest toys, but you were so ready for me to say it and so ready to shoot it down. And it's a thing that I wish... there's things that I would love for us to carry. There's things that I look at in different catalogs or through different vendors, and I think, God, there's probably a market for those by us. There's not really a good I mean, Nakama is the closest thing, and we were at their place recently, and a lot of what their in-store sales are Gundam kits, and then like a few other like Dragon Ball Z toys and some like NECA stuff. Like, so there's a lot of action figures and toys and stuff where I feel like there's a market for that locally, but we don't have the space and we don't have the money for it. And honestly, the margins on it are not great.
The margins are a big part of it. They're terrible.
Yeah, and one of the big problems is you can't really restock anything. So a lot of it is like you order a ton up front and you hope it sells over time. And if you bet wrong, you've tied up a ton of money in inventory.
And there's no way to... Like, today somebody called asking, do we have the new Avengers wave? Do we have the new X-Men wave? We have no idea when those things are coming out.
Right. And occasionally you get something where it's like, cool, we got a bunch of Black Widow toys. That movie's not coming out for another year. Yeah. Like, what am I going to do with these figures from a movie that no one can see yet? So that's something where I don't know that you wouldn't let me do it, but I think I would have a very tough time convincing you to dedicate a lot more floor space and finances to a toy section. That would be something I don't think you'd be happy with, and something I think you would very quickly want to curtail.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
This one is... I don't know if this is easy to answer or not, but I think it's a fascinating question. And I wasn't prepared to answer it myself either.
Uh-oh. Think about your answer while I'm
This is like the ultimate Challengers universe.
Ooh.
If Challengers were opening today, like if we just decided now to do a store...
Right. As old men.
What would it look like? Like, we took... we worked retail for a long time, and we wanted to do the opposite of a lot of things.
Right.
But what we learned when we were doing Blue is that just trying to repeat Red was so difficult just because, like, those things almost don't exist. Like, the idea of grid wall panels and grid wall shelves. Like, the fixtures that we were using were all gone.
Sourcing a lot of that stuff was a gigantic pain in the ass.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know, we used to have, you know, a couch in the front window and... chairs, but the chairs are gone because of the virus. But, like, do you have... If you're doing this for the first time now, what do you think would be different?
I mean, there's a couple things. Like, some of it is, like, business-oriented stuff where I wonder if we would have better answers for some of the things that are driving the market now, because we would have had to... Like, a lot of the things that we do with, like, speculators and with... incentive books and marking things up or not marking things up, scarcity and that sort of stuff, people flipping books. We had to come up with those answers on our own, and we got to come up with the answer that we were the most comfortable with. If we'd been essentially experiencing this market while working for somebody else, I wonder if some of those decisions that they would have made would have just carried over to us.
Yeah.
If we would have just been like, I mean, because we didn't... These are things that we came to over time. Like, when we opened the store, our back issues were being priced, like above cover price.
And priced in that same format.
Right, yeah. And we did incentive covers, and we did mark them up, and we did 1 in 25 variants and all that sort of stuff. Like, it was years of doing that before realizing we don't like that. We don't like the underlying psychology of it, and we don't want to do it that way. But if we had to do that because that was someone else's store philosophy... I mean, we would have just carried it over. We would probably, if we opened today, we would be doing, you know, 1 in 100 variants on the shelf for $100. And we'd probably be chasing some of that stuff and doing the, like, team variants and stuff through DC. Aesthetically, how would it look?
And I think that was more my question than policy-wise, but policies are always good to know.
I figured.
Because my answer is all back issues.
Yeah, there you go. More toys. Aesthetically, I mean, I think the product mix would be largely the same. Mostly because, like, you look at how much kid stuff is coming out, you look at the manga, you look at the graphic novels, you look at the way that certain single issues are selling and driving weekly sales.
I gotta tell you, I still think there's so many stores that are behind the curve on the all ages material.
Sure, there's a lot of it. I mean, there's maybe too much of it. I look at what we're shelving each week, and it's like, this is too many books. But the aesthetically, I mean, what you're talking about is basically a ground up day one. Like, what does Challengers look like if you throw out everything you've learned? I mean, like, basically, like, largely the same, but, like, how would we do it? I mean, probably more, like, I think the lighting would be different in that we'd probably do something a little bit
more modern.
I want to say warmer, maybe something that isn't a stark white.
See, we debate over that because I don't like warm light.
Sure. I think maybe like more like open wood bookshelves, something that isn't sealed off on all sides and something that has a little bit more like shorter and more of them and maybe aisles, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like how we would do comics, I mean,
would we have a club?
if we had a subscription service, I think we would probably follow the Dragon model of subscription but no discount.
Okay.
That's something where I like that they do that. Psychologically, I cannot get to the point where I feel like I am comfortable telling people we are no longer giving them a discount and giving them nothing in return. That's the hump I can never get over with that.
It's easier for
Can't
me
do it.
because there's so many people, and this is a conversation you and I have weekly.
Weekly. Almost daily.
yeah, that to me, you get a discount because you're ordering in advance. You tell us what to order, so we're not taking as much of a risk.
Right.
But for the number of people, and it's a higher number every week,
Sure.
that only ask for things after we've committed our orders,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't feel they deserve the discount for it because they haven't earned it based off of our rules.
Right.
You don't think that those are our rules?
Some of it is that's not the. I mean, the letter of our rules. I don't think really state that. You could revise it to do that, but I don't think people would notice or care.
But also, I want to point out, I'm not looking to have that discussion or argue about it now.
Sure.
I'm just getting my point across.
Right. But what I was going to say was like that's the letter of it's beside the point. For me, I don't usually want to do it because it's more work to try and not give the discount on some of those items.
And I understand.
Like if we had a way of in the system basically marking like this thing gets a discount but this one doesn't in a more granular way, like maybe I'd be okay doing that and telling everyone, look, if you get it to us after FOC, you're not getting a discount on it. Like just know that.
It's weirder for me to comprehend because I'm usually a lot more discount heavy than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel bad at like certain people like, oh, this person is a good friend of ours, blah, 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 whatever.
Sure.
And you're like, no, retail price. But that should also be...
We're not paying less for it.
right. So that's my point with the
Sure.
subscriber books.
I get
But
you.
also, since you don't give out as many discounts as I do, you should be able to have that say on these.
Okay.
And obviously you have your say on everything because you're owner.
Sure.
You're a co-owner. You're a part owner.
Thanks.
You're a portion owner.
Assistant to the owner.
A portion owner. We're
So
both
yeah,
portion owners.
I honestly don't have an answer for what we would do with single issue comics because I don't. I mean, I can't think of anything that you would put them on because like everything I've seen that people do, besides the way we do it, I don't like. I don't like waterfall racks. I don't like pockets. I don't like that sort of stuff. I don't. It's not my. It's not what I enjoy. It's certainly not what I feel like our philosophy is as far as like how we want people to browse.
The irony of the shelves we use is that these were created for video stores.
Yeah.
And those are long gone.
Long gone.
They just happen to fit 7 comic books in
Perfectly.
a 4-foot rack perfectly.
Unless you count Black Label stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's a hard question to answer because it's. I like what we have and I like our answers to a lot of those questions. So having to answer it in another way is like.
I like that from the beginning you were very strict on no color scheme, no specific kind of shelves, because we spent so much money on our shelving in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And God love it, it's all still in most, like the shape of the bookshelves and
man.
the wire racks.
Those metal bookshelves, goddamn.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I sometimes would like other ways of shelving things that I think would maybe be a little more eye-pleasing, those things, for the money, have more than paid for
And
themselves.
they were thrown in the backs of vans and traveled to
all over
conventions
Chicago.
and to other states in the beginning.
Yeah. They got a bunch of packing tape on the back.
And there's little things like we're still using our original price gun.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we should get a new price gun. A, we have a new price gun because
do.
of blue, but also B, we don't need it.
Don't. Place
Like,
that,
it's still
you replace
holding.
that ink roller and it's like it's brand new.
Yeah.
Patrick, what's your answer to this question?
I mean, I think that we both answered it as we went along.
Yeah, okay.
My point is that you had a much stricter vision than I did, and that you stuck to it and made it be a thing that lasted this long.
Only by accident.
Like, I think it's harder to answer without knowing the shape of the store.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming for the sake of this question,
It
like
would
it's
be
the
the
same
exact same,
space. Because otherwise, I mean, like not to keep answering a question that we've both answered to death. I was always very, not lighting aside, I was very happy with the layout and the approach of River North. Like I thought that was a store that took everything we learned in 12 years of running a store and applied it day one to a new store. So happy with how that store turned out. One of the big disappointments of that store going away was I don't feel like we did anything wrong with the design of it.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Really happy with it.
I think it'd be really fun to have a store that had like a center bar would be where the counters were, just like a little square in the middle.
Yeah.
And that we could have full sight lines in every direction.
Yeah,
but there's no way, like, short of running power from the ceiling.
Right. Which you could do. Or I mean, it's tough because of the layout of our store, how narrow it is to do a lot of the things like that. I remember when it was in Downers Grove, when Brian was running it, and he had done a thing where it's something that I do like, and it's something I would like for us to be able to do, which is the kind of the four-sided counter.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that is frustrating sometimes is we have a store that's named, Comics and Conversation, and a lot of what we like to be able to do is chatter with people at the counter, but your two options are either all the way to the side where the pins are, if you're a customer and want to chat, which is tough because people think you're in line and you have to go like, oh no, and everyone has to move to the side, and it's certainly now it's not socially distant to have someone 3 feet from you. And then the other one is the side counter, which is basically right in the doorway, and your back's to the door. And I've stood there talking to Kent some days when I've come in on a Thursday, and it's weird. It feels weird.
Yeah, like you're blocking
like the door dings,
people,
and you kind of turn around and you're like, hey, and then you're still. So something where the ability to chatter with people was not detrimental to the flow of the store would be nice, but the store just doesn't have that. We'd have to get rid of product. We'd have to, even if we had a completely open middle section, 12 feet of space in every direction. Yeah. I don't know how you would do that. I don't know.
We need a circular store.
Kind of, or circular counter maybe. I don't know. How would that work? So yeah, that's something that if we were doing a day one thing, I would probably keep that more in mind, is not just sightlines, but like, how do we, if someone's at the counter talking to us, how does that affect people who are trying to, come in the door or trying to bring their stuff up or whatever?
Yep.
Here's a question for you, Patrick. What's another job in the comics industry you think you'd be good at?
Non-retail. Gosh.
Can't be retail.
I think marketing, but I think I would hate it.
Really? Why?
Well, it requires talking to retailers.
I tell people in marketing that they have one of the toughest jobs because they have to take the heat from so many retailers. That is...
Yeah. I mean...
Morgan Kaiju Perry, for example, is somebody that I... God bless her for having as much enthusiasm and kindness as she does, considering how much... I mean, like, we talked about it recently, where it feels like most of our job is apologizing for things that are out of our control. And that's got to be a lot of her job, too, is trying to make things right with retailers, where it's like, this is not her company's fault, and it's certainly not her fault within that company. But you have angry retailers, and it's like, how do I make this right? Like, how do I placate this person who does not deserve being placated?
I think I took your question a little bit wrong. I think I was looking at, because you said what job you'd want. No, I looked at marketing as like, I think like one of the only other jobs I could do.
Well, I guess I said what you'd be good at.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily something you'd enjoy. It could be. I mean, that would be a second part of the question. If you want.
I would like to say inker, if that wasn't a dying art.
People still do it. Some of them do it badly. Have you seen who's inking Mark Bagley in this Amazing Spider-Man? It's gross. That guy's still getting work.
Because that was a thing that I was training to do for a long time.
That's true.
What is your answer to that question?
I have literally no other skills, and it feels like a lot of people in comics who leave retail end up going into promotion in some level. I mean, there's a lot of people who are former retailers who are, sending you weekly emails letting you know that their company's books are really good and you should check them out. And I think it's an easy lateral move. I wouldn't say easy. That's unkind. But it's a natural lateral move for people in comics.
I mean, that was literally my first.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most likely scenario is like, well, you've probably made some friends at some of those companies, or you're at least known to them, and part of your job is pitching comics to people. So you're just pitching a smaller group of comics to a smaller group of people. As long as you're halfway professional and can understand that you're representing a company, you could do that job. There's a lot of people again in that part of comics that have come from retail. Outside of that,
I know you don't have the coding skills or the programming, but I think that you would be good on that side. Unlike a comic suite person, I mean, you'd have to go through some training. But
sure, I mean,
because you understand those programs really well, you learn them, you know the ins and outs, and you really crack into it, and you're like, let me play with this for a while.
Yeah, and I mean, not to copy your answer to this question, but yeah, I think I could do that. I would absolutely hate it. because a lot of it is dealing with retailers, and they're going to have dumb questions, and it's tech troubleshooting. Like, how much do you love getting a message from a family member where they're like, I don't understand why this isn't working, and you're like, if you're doing it the way you're telling me you're doing it, it should work. So I have to figure out if it A, actually isn't working, or B, you're not explaining what you're doing right. So I feel like that would be a lot of, if I ended up working at a company like that, if that would be the thing. My answer is honestly going to be something in distribution, probably. I think I could handle that office lifestyle, and also being someone who's worked with retailers. I think there's elements of that job that I think I could probably do well at and also enjoy. Yeah, that's maybe something I would investigate if I was not working in comics retail.
One of the questions you already answered was,
Give it to me again. I'll give you a different
would
answer.
you ever open? I'm gonna change it. The question was, would you ever open a second store again? Now my question is, what would it take for you to open a second store?
Shit ton of money. Yeah, I mean, if things were different, like if we did not have, as you put it, the albatross of blue financially hanging over us, and we suddenly had a huge influx of cash that we did not
remember. The albatross was a sign of good luck until some fool shot him down.
Yeah.
Yes, I've read a poem.
Yes, and we had a bunch of money that came in that was not attached to very high interest rates. Yeah, I would probably do a second store. I would probably approach it with a lot more trepidation than maybe we put into River North. I think one of the things that we've always been bad at is letting one or both of our enthusiasms kind of get away from us, and feeling like it's better to finish something than to call it off. And
I mean, we call off a lot of things, but they've always been lesser stake things.
Well, but it's all stuff that mostly it's stuff that we've done and then not had it work out and then shut down.
Yeah.
I'm talking about things where we planned it and went, no, this isn't working. Rarely do we do that, especially if it's something we're excited about and we've put effort into. It's always like, how do we turn this into a yes, basically? So it's something where, like, the stars would need to completely align, and even then it would be like, how do we limit our exposure on this? Because we've seen what can happen if we just go into it thinking everything's going to work out, or assuming that everything's going to work out at least as well as the previous thing. So if we went into it saying, this is what can happen, how do we cover our ass to make sure that does not bring us down? Yeah, I mean, the mentality of why we did Blue hasn't changed. It was because we needed money, and because it was very difficult to look at Red as a long-term play for things like retirement and financial security and not living in a box outside the store. And that calculus has not changed.
You can live in a box inside the store.
I don't know if we can. I don't know if it's zoned for that.
That's a good point.
But anyway, I wouldn't say absolutely not. I don't foresee it happening. And again, the things that would need it to happen, it's like, Red would need to be completely paid off. Like, we would not owe anybody any money, a single dollar on Red. Like, that was something where we were not in that position when we opened the last store.
Right.
We would need to have a bunch of money that did not have strings attached to it, which I can't foresee that ever happening. I mean, at that point, you're talking like lottery wins.
I mean, that goes back to my old saying of, the second we can afford a second store is the second we don't need a second store.
Right. So if things like that happened, I think it would be worth investigating. But, I mean, yeah, you might as well say that, like, if a leprechaun gave you a wish, like, I mean, it's the same completely nonsense hypothetical.
Sure.
It's my turn.
No, I didn't answer this.
Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry. Patrick, would you ever open a second store?
I think that we may have better luck taking over an existing store and challengerifying it.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be easier for sure.
Yeah, I think that if you look at the chain stores in the comics industry, most of them have a second location that they got from somebody else.
Yeah, they expanded into someone else's storefront and did better with it.
When we were doing Blue, I really was soured on the idea of starting a store from scratch in a neighborhood that you just pick. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that in this day and age, it's really hard to start a new store from nowhere.
Sure.
But I think we could turn an existing store into something better.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Here's a question for you. Related to this question, Patrick.
Okay.
How important do you think it is to live in the neighborhood you work in? That's something that is new to you for challengers, in that you frequently worked in cities and towns that you did not live in.
Well, I always used to say that I hated, like when I was in Downers Grove, I hated socializing in Downers Grove because it was always like, hey, there's a guy from the comic store.
You're always running into people.
Yeah. I think that it is extremely important to be in or around your neighborhood. Like, if you want to have brass tacks, I don't live in the neighborhood that the store is in. I live 5 blocks away.
Yeah, I would.
But it's a different neighborhood.
I mean, technically,
it's a different neighborhood.
I get that, but I would disagree with the idea that it is not part of the neighborhood. Like, a lot of the businesses that are in that neighborhood are ones you frequent.
But if I lived up in Rogers Park and the store was in Bucktown, I don't think it's... I think it's really important for you to give back to the community that's supporting you.
Sure.
And I think that the distance that I live from the store is...
beneficial.
Yes. And I think that I am supporting the same ecosystem that supports me. I think it's a really easy answer to your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't, because it's... I mean, we both came up the same way in that we worked in towns that we lived close to or would socialize around. Places that we worked in would find it, like, not suffocating, but there'd be things of, like, I want to... If I'm working in Downers Grove, I don't want to go to the theater in Downers Grove. I want to go to the theater in Aurora because I don't know anybody there and I can relax.
Right.
But I think the difference then was that we were working for places that we didn't own and weren't really... We didn't feel... We felt responsible maybe for our work and our stores, but we didn't feel responsible for that company. Like, that wasn't our name on the door. Right. Now it's something where when we're out someplace and someone sees you on the sidewalk or shouts at you from a car to find out when Invader Zim is coming out, that's something where it's goofy, but it's also kind of nice, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's nice to be someplace and have people say, oh, I was at McDonald's every day forever. But one day specifically, a couple weeks ago,
the one right by the store?
Yeah, the one by the store. I had my Challenger's mask on. And the guy in front of me in line did his order and then turned around and to walk away and saw me in the Challenger's mask and went, hey, I just want to say you have a really great store. I go there a lot. And I was like, thank you. And
that is pretty great. How often does it happen? You're like, I don't know who this person is.
I recognize this person. They're not a subscriber, but they're someone who I recognize as going to the store.
People wearing masks now, so it's much harder.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean...
But that's the thing that I wouldn't get if I was, like you said, like if I was going to someplace in Rogers Park or whatever. Like, yeah. But...
what if they said it when you were working in Downers Grove? It wouldn't mean as much.
No, absolutely. I mean,
it would, because it's still your store. You put the stamp on that store. You design and laid out and we're responsible for that store day to day.
But I think that stuff, I don't know if it's because it's different, because it's something we own, or something that I think that the kind of compliment we get is different, or the kind of interaction is different. Where, I mean, back then, if someone recognized you from the comic shop, they would just say something like, oh, they love comics, or like, oh, Batman, or whatever. And it's like, great. Like, it's kind of the lowest hanging fruit of recognition of, like, I know the thing that you sell and I like the thing that you sell. But a lot of the interaction that we get now with people when we are recognized outside of the store, or that we have, within the vicinity of the store, is that specifically the store they like. They like going there, and they like getting things, and they like, comic books. And it's not just, they are comics fans, but they are fans of going to Challengers to get comics, and that feels different, and I like that. In general, I mean, to answer the question, I think one of the disadvantages that we had opening a second location that we would maybe have never been able to overcome is Bucktown feels like home. Not just because we've been in that store for 13 years, but because we've been in that neighborhood for almost a decade. Like, as people who live in Chicago, like, all of the things around the store, like, I use those things, just not because I work there, but because I live there.
In that neighborhood when the store opened, but then we chose to move to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And I mean, above and beyond, like, being able to care about the neighborhood and feeling an ownership and feeling a connection to the community and ways of wanting to give back and feeling, embraced by it. Just the commute, man. like being able to drive to the store in 5 minutes, or being able to walk to the store in 15 minutes, like, that's worth a lot to me.
Go ahead, rub in the fact you can walk to the store
in 15 minutes. That is worth a lot to me. Because, I just going home at night, to someplace that's in a completely different county is like, I don't know, like, it doesn't feel great.
Knowing that you could drive to River North in 15 minutes, but it would take you an hour via the train or the bus was so frustrating.
Sure.
Because it's like, hey, these 45 minutes, they're just wasted.
Pretty much.
They're just wasted.
And especially when you're working 6 days a week.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel great to lose all that commuting time.
Yeah. And I know that commute is nothing to a vast majority of people.
God. The amount of people
before the pandemic
that are taking we're taking like hour and a half train rides to and from each day just to get someplace. Crazy. The amount of, like, when DC was in New York and we talked to DC staffers, and like none of them could afford to live where the DC offices were.
Definitely not.
So a lot of them were living in like Pennsylvania and places like that. Like,
yeah, I was when I was hanging out at DC for a week back in like 2003, 2004. I was staying with Jan Jones and JG Jones in West Orange, New Jersey, and I would like, I'm going to go into the offices with Jan. So it's like, this is her commute. This is we're taking this train, and now we're taking this train, and now we're walking. It's like, oh man, this is a lot every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just psychologically, it's difficult to do that, and still have like, it's a thing where I think maybe it's more detrimental to people who work in like more customer facing jobs like retail than it would be if you're working in an office, because in general, like, I don't want to say you can get away with being grumpy in an office, but if you're someone who is not like interacting with customers, like if you're interacting with like office mates or like people through email or whatever, I don't, if you get to your job and you're like, that was a shitty commute and I don't feel great, like, I don't think anyone would notice, or it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But if you are stuck in traffic for an hour and then you have to, excitedly tell people about Ten of Swords, or, be present for people when they come into the store and be engaging with them, it's much harder to put that facade on, because underneath you're just like, Jesus Christ, I'm already exhausted and I've got 8 hours ahead of me. And then I've got an hour back in the same traffic.
Or have to record a podcast on Friday night after you just had to get back here from River North.
I can't even imagine. Wait, no. Oh, no.
I do want to say that as far as taking ownership of the store goes, there's anytime anyone who works with us says, well, you guys do this, I always say, no, we guys do this. Like, it's not we, it's us. And
like, who is the us in this scenario?
All the employees.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, like, and I'm not calling anybody out because I don't know that.
Well, I didn't know if you meant us, like everyone who works at Challengers, or like everyone who shops at Challengers.
Everyone who works at Challengers.
Okay.
Like, I want them to feel that they are an important part of the store. Their opinions and voices matter, but also to take ownership of it. Like if they're ever out talking about it, and I know it's not anyone else's full-time job or anybody else's name on the door, which is weird because it's not our name on the door either, but I still want them to say we and us and not they or them. I want them to feel like they've earned it, but I also don't want them to do it if they don't think it's genuine. I want them to want to have that.
Sure.
But and like, that is a thing that I used to do at the old place, and I would take full ownership of it, but then wouldn't be treated like I was, you know what I mean?
But I mean, at the same time, like, that was the weird thing where, like, there was a thing that Rick would do, and it probably still does, where he would, if someone was looking for a book that he didn't have, he would offer to call his Naperville store his Chicago store.
Sure.
And it's like, that's the kind of the extension of that idea where it's like, well,
I mean, yeah, I don't mean that. What I meant was, I think when I worked for Graham Crackers, I worked incredibly hard for a very long time.
Sure.
And I think that it wasn't a job I left at the office. I was always trying to make it a better place.
Sure. You were thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
In a way that you did not feel like that was rewarded
after
or
a while,
acknowledged.
no, certainly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want the people that work with us to feel like they're part of it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is something that I think we tried to make clear to people associated with the store a couple years ago is, I mean, if they've got ideas, I want to hear them. Like, not everything's going to get okayed, and I'm sure a lot of stuff won't. But if they've got ideas on improving the business that they want to take responsibility for, like the things that most of them are going to say no to are when people come to us and like, hey, could you do this extra thing that's going to take a bunch of extra work? And it's like, no, I have no time for that. But if someone's like, I want to do this thing that I think could help the store and they want to take responsibility for it, sure. Yeah, let's run with it.
I mean, Women's Comics Night still exists in a capacity.
In a virtual capacity?
Yeah. There's still meetups and they still do things, but... Yeah.
I mean, when we had thrown open the doors to, like, trying to do more events a couple years ago, Donovan had said she wanted to do a letter writing thing, so we did a few letter writing nights.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I'll bring stuff.
Yeah, we'll try it.
Yeah.
That stuff is still in the back room.
It still is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're less a family than ever before, obviously, with COVID.
Yeah.
We have several people who are just...
checked out until there's a vaccine.
Yeah, by the time they come back, they won't have work for us. If they come back, that is.
Yeah.
I wonder. I honestly wonder.
Yeah, I would assume that basically anybody who we don't see in the store from the lockdown through the end of the calendar year 2020, pretty much done. Can't imagine they would be interested in restarting that relationship.
Yeah, and I gotta say that Gina is just so on top of everything right now.
She is, yeah.
And it's so great. And we can rely on Kent as much as we always have. And that's kind of it. I mean, we still have Lizzie who's working. Yeah. When she can.
Yep.
But like Gina is always willing to do more.
Yeah. And I wish we didn't have to ask her to.
Exactly. And Kent is begrudgingly able to sometimes do more.
It's funny because the layout of our workforce, it's all volunteer, and it's people working for store credit, and they all have full-time jobs, some of them multiple full-time jobs, and that are paying them actual money. So those things have to come first, and I get that. And that's above and beyond there being a pandemic going on and people not feeling comfortable coming into the store, which I do not begrudge anybody, someone who helps us out or otherwise, who's like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I get it. There's a bunch of things I used to do that I don't feel comfortable doing, and I don't feel guilty about not doing them. But when we had kind of figured out how we wanted to staff the store, one of my things that I really pushed for was a large group of people that work very few hours.
Yeah.
Because the theory that I had was, well, when someone can't work because they're busy doing other things, it's very easy to slot somebody else in. The two downsides to that were, one, it's very difficult to give people the kind of knowledge base that's really helpful for us in the store. There's a lot of questions that we get asked about a lot of books, and if you're not in the store often enough to know about those books, it can be difficult to get those answers out quickly, which either means we have to jump in or someone has to investigate something that maybe they wouldn't need to investigate if they were at the store more often. But the other problem is that because everyone that we're picking up is somebody who is committed to other jobs, that theory of like, oh, well, we have 6 other people we can ask. They're all busy. Like, none of them can help. They are all otherwise committed. So it's like, we've got all these people, but everyone's kind of in the wind.
Yeah, and we had, and we're getting way off of the question topic, but like we had Donovan for just about a decade because she had Fridays off.
Yeah. She
got a different job that put her in a full 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job.
Yep.
And that took away her Fridays.
Right.
And yeah, man, I wonder if she wants to come do Saturdays.
You could ask.
I can ask. Anyway, whose turn is it?
I think it's yours.
Is it?
Because
Okay.
I just did my third question.
Okay. Do you feel lucky to do what you do?
I feel lucky that I can earn a living doing stuff when I have so little appreciable job skills and virtually no other motivation. Like, I did such a terrible job.
That shouldn't be funny.
No, it is. It was a joke. I mean, I phrased it in a funny way, I hope.
All right.
It wasn't supposed to be like a heavy insight into my soul. It was a heavy insight into my soul and a joke. I horribly misapplied myself in high school. For those who don't know, it took me an extra year to get out. I was a 5-year student.
But you also started a year early.
I did. Or
2 years early.
It all balanced out age-wise.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I tested really well in gifted programs, and basically midway through first grade, they moved me into second grade, and so I finished second grade and then moved forward from there. High school,
But didn't you also start a full year earlier?
I don't
know. All right.
I mean, maybe, like, my birthday's in November, and it was a thing of, like, I think there was a period where it's like he could have started the year later, but they're like, or he could start now.
Okay.
So, I mean, when I graduated high school, I was 17. But at the end of that 5th year.
Okay.
So, like, I graduated at an age where most people are that age when they graduate high school. Some are even older. So it's not like I was, I lost years or whatever. But I was not motivated by nearly anything. There was no passion that I had when I was in high school, and so I would, basically...
It was working at the comic store.
Well, and that's the thing, like comics as a medium was very engaging to me, and so being able to kind of find some, way to earn a living doing that was great. I theoretically would have found something else probably if that hadn't been an option, but it was, so I did that. And I've been doing that my entire life. There was a period where I was doing a night job someplace else, and I did okay at that. I mean, I did my job. I did it well.
Well, no, I don't mean this to be wordplay, but that job didn't challenge you.
No, not at all. But it was great for it. Jesus, I watched so much TV. It was amazing. Do you know how many seasons of TV shows I got through?
All of them?
All of them. I was watching seasons of shows. Back when Netflix was doing discs instead of doing streaming, I was on the 8 at a time plan because I would go through them so fast that I would need to have a bank of 2 or 3 discs in a TV series because I was going to burn through 2 of them a night.
And I think, more importantly, you discovered Chipotle.
I did. Chipotle was the group of us was getting dinner one night and they said Chipotle, and I'm like, I don't get Mexican food. And they're like, have you tried a chicken quesadilla? And I went, what's in that? And then I got it and never looked back. Neither did my arteries. So yeah, I mean, I would certainly say I feel lucky. I mean, I have a roof over my head. I have money coming in. I can eat. I can, interact. I can take care of myself in a very specific level that I am comfortable living at. I wish I earned more. I wish I was more financially stable, but so do most Americans. I feel very lucky to be able to do what I do. On a different level, emotionally, I feel lucky. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast. We probably did, but I've mentioned it to people in the store. When we were shut down for the coronavirus, I missed being able to have people just come into the store and talk.
Yeah. To
find out what's going on with them, to talk about movies or TV shows or comic books or sports or wrestling or whatever. That's something that when I was working that night job, I was on third shift and second shift overlapped for 4 hours. So for 4 hours, there were 4 of us in the room. And then for the second 4 hours, it was me and one other guy. And one of us might be somewhere else in the building for an hour at a time. So it was mostly you had your headphones on and you're looking at a monitor and you're, watching movies or TV shows or whatever, playing a game. And like you said, it's not challenging. It's not anything. It's taking off the hours. Pay was good. I wasn't stressed at all.
We did one of our Christmas gift exchanges at that office.
It was great. But at the same time, it was not rewarding in any sense. I didn't feel a sense of accomplishment when I did anything. It was a very easy routine to get into, and it wasn't fulfilling though. Like this, I feel lucky to do what I do. I feel lucky that there's still a comics industry that I can, talk to people. And I mean, we're lucky enough to do a podcast that people want to listen to about us talking about our week or our insights or our opinions. I think that's great. That's a lot of people don't have that option. It's very easy to get frustrated by a lot of the drawbacks of the job, and there are so many. We catalog them weekly. But it feels good. I genuinely feel good. And you joked before earlier that you were going to ask me a question that started with, are you happy? And then I was going to say no. I am happy. I actually am happy. I get frustrated. Everyone gets frustrated with their job. It's a job.
I didn't
I'm
assume
happy,
you
though.
weren't. I just thought you would take the easy joke
the punchline.
for that. Yeah.
Patrick, do you feel lucky to do what you do?
Extremely. I look at, with the exception of family, with the people that I interact with regularly, the people that I consider my friends, my good friends, my non-good friends, the only person that there's one person from school that I hang out with, or obviously not now, but who's a good friend to this day, and that's Bob. Everybody else I know through comics.
Yeah.
Everybody else is through comics. And even Bob and I have comics together.
Sure.
But I didn't meet him through working in comics.
Sure.
Everybody who means anything to me now, I've met through comics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish I made more money. I wish I made money. I wish I had a savings account or could buy the car that I wanted or owned a house. But who doesn't wish they had more money?
Yeah. It's easy to look at it and go this is great, but it's man, I know people who are way worse off than I am. So
I mean, just look at the room we're in right now.
It's pretty nice.
That should answer everything.
Yep. I mean, yeah, if you take a look at like the fringe benefits of running a comic shop. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. It certainly provides you with access to a level of your fandom that you would not have access to if you were purely a consumer.
Your fourth question?
Oh, is it mine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it this email from Express?
Will you take advantage of these sale benefits?
Oh my god. At least 3 times a day I get an email from Express. There are always more discounts and more sales.
Well, you haven't bought from them since since you bought your blue wardrobe.
So thirsty. No,
You're freaking out.
I had to because they sent me an email saying that they were going to cancel my credit card with them because I didn't use my credit in enough time. And so it's like, fine, I'll buy this thing on clearance. You'll get your $20.
What color shoes did you get today?
They're just red ones.
Okay.
Yeah, the ones I.
What color trim?
It's the
white.
Yeah, it's the basic Chuck Taylors.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Southern Gentleman shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I wish. This is answering your question. The Chuck Taylors are kind of all I can get in red now.
Oh,
from Converse. They do other things, but they're mostly like terrible and like, oh, here's a kind of red stitched together with a different kind of red in the front. Like, there's not good. A lot of the options I liked from them before, they've discontinued. So when they come up with new ones, it's like, this is like tie-dyed, or this is some sports organization, or this is red but like super saturated and not a color that matches anything I'd ever wear. So I can only really just get the basic Chuck Taylors from the now, which is fine. They're cheap. They're a decent price. Patrick, question number 4. What's the ideal release week for Challengers? How many comics? How many graphic novels? What do you think each premier publisher's output should be?
Oh, man. I don't know.
I feel like you know what. Yeah, I feel like you know what it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So you can extrapolate from there what it should be.
I mean, do you remember the Dal Bush theory of DC only doing 12 monthly titles?
Yeah. They'll get there, don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sad.
Yeah, I think that ideally, the right kind of week, and I don't know how to put this into numbers, into single issues.
Give
or
it a range.
Quantities. Well, no, I'm going to say 2 diamond boxes for the new release wall.
Okay.
And 2.5 club boxes.
Wow, okay. For people who have no idea what those numbers mean, this week, which was a very large week of releases and club stuff, not counting the DC stuff, we were 3.5 boxes for subscriptions, and we were, with DC stuff, I think we were 3 boxes for the shelf. And DC was a lot because it was Batman 100. Well, DC's like a box.
I mean, they were thick in Spider-Man 49.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of thick products.
There were, it's true. But, like, I mean, the Ten of Swords stuff. There were 3 Ten of Swords chapters, and those are our most pulled comics, by far.
I don't like that there's, 1 week there's 1 Ten of Swords, 1 week there's 3.
It's gonna be mostly 3 going forward. There's a week that I'm pretty sure is 2 issues of Marauders in a row are the 2 chapters that are coming out in a week.
2 in 1 week?
Yeah, it's like 15 and 16. Marauders 15 and 16.
I mean, it's bad enough.
Or
Amazing is last week and this week, and they're both more than cover price. And Avengers, technically, because there were some printing issues for Marvel, is anybody who bought it off the shelf this week. New one is next week.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to evenly space their output. They're like this week.
Coordinate it better.
Excuse me, I'm getting a little rough voiced. The FOCs I was doing for Lunar for DC for 3 weeks from now, it's Dark Knight's Metal and it's DC's Dead Planet.
Okay.
And you should never have the books that have 4 covers each in the same week.
It's not great.
Spread it out.
Yeah, that's true.
I think whatever the output is, you take your monthly output and you divide it by 4 weeks. Also, I feel like if I was a publisher, I would have all of my books have 13 issues a year. So everybody's on a strict 4-week schedule.
Sure.
No breaks. 4 weeks.
Okay.
In and out.
Interesting.
So on the one hand, like this Wednesday was phenomenal.
Yeah. Money-wise, yeah.
This Thursday was not.
No. That's usually been happening. Like, when we have a really stellar Wednesday, Thursday's like, nobody came in. And I don't know if it doesn't feel like it's because of that, but maybe it is.
Well, I mean, a lot of the same people are coming in on Thursdays as it is. But Gina was reminding me today that there was a point a few months ago or so where Thursdays were just stellar.
Yeah, it does swing.
That's always been this industry.
Yeah.
Like, Saturdays or Sundays usually balance back out.
Right.
But I don't know. I think All right, let me see if I can do this. I think that Marvel and DC should do maximum 40 titles a month.
Each or between them?
Each.
Okay.
Because they both do more than that.
So basically 10 Marvel and 10 DC a week is what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that... Oh, man, I don't think it's fair, but if I were to say, like, Image could have 8, Dark Horse could have 5,
okay,
Oni can have 3, Aftershock can have 3, Vault can have 3.
So you're thinking, like, collectively, like, 40 to 50 comics a week is what you think the output should be?
I think, like, if I'd have to sit it down and do the numbers, but probably.
Yeah, okay. What about graphic novels?
Oh, wow. Original or collections or both?
Both. Like, when I'm putting stuff on the wall, we got weeks where it's like... I mean, in general, I think we're doing, like...
25.
Okay. I mean, because that's kind of in the range of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that 25 is a lot of kids' books and manga right now.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of other stuff that's really making the shelves.
20 to 25.
Okay.
Yourself?
Cop-out answer, but I think your answers are good.
Okay, I'll take it.
I think I could maybe go a little higher on some stuff. I think I would say 70 to 80 books a week, I think, is maybe something I'd be okay with. Anytime it's over 100, it's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That's just way too much product. And that's what we were doing.
And that's without graphic novels. You're just talking
single comics, yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there was a period there where, like, Marvel and DC were just churning out, like, a couple dozen things a week, and it's like, you're nuts. This is too much stuff.
Yeah.
And that's on top of so many publishers now. And even the little guys add up. Your Aftershocks and your Vaults. Like, a couple, 3 books a week, and suddenly it's like, Jesus, there's no oxygen in the room. Graphic novels.
I realized I should have put Giga as the next highlighted book.
Oh.
Since it's got a earlier release.
Sure.
That by a week than...
I think crossover was a good one to do because I'd like to do stuff that's maybe slightly before FOCs.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
I think it's more valuable than people saying...
I saw
like,
what you ordered for Giga. I think it could use some promotion.
I think it'll be fine. I mean,
okay.
I read the first issue. I thought it was good. Not great, but good.
Here's a quick anecdote from today.
Uh-huh.
Guy comes in, picks up 2 copies of Department of Truth #1 and says, "Can I buy 2 copies?" And I go, "Sure." Then he comes up a few minutes later and goes, "Can I buy every single copy you have?" No.
Please don't do that.
Nope. And then I forgot it wasn't new. I'm like, yeah, we got a rule of two for the first week.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, I understand. And then he walks away. Then I go, wait a minute, it's not the first week anymore.
Right.
You can buy more than 2. He's like, so what, like 4? Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point it's a negotiation. You're going to say a number at some point and I'm going to say no.
Yeah, every single copy we have left, you cannot buy.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. I'd rather create a bunch of new customers than I would have one guy buy them all and
Which,
just sell
ironically, James Tynan still has a T-shirt on hold with us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, graphic novels I think is maybe where I'd see maybe a little bit more of a change, and it's something that I don't know if we should maybe be more aware of in future monthly order forms, but...
I mean, we're definitely ordering way less of collected volumes.
Uh-huh. I think we could lower it. Specifically, again...
You say that, but I feel like you've FOC'd up things that I wasn't going to carry.
Well, all ages and manga are the 2 things I'm thinking about where I'm like, there's just too much.
I mean, manga we've definitely
cut down.
Definitely cut down.
All ages I'm feeling it as well.
But
there's just no room for stuff.
And I get it. The problem with the all ages stuff is we never know what's going to be a hit.
Sure, but I think there's things where if we're skeptical about it, let's wait and see.
Okay.
Maybe somebody comes in and says, do you have this? And we're like, no, but we'll get it next time. Like, there's very few things that we are on the fence on that end up completely blowing through for us.
Yeah.
Occasionally they'll sell, but it's not the sort of thing where it's like, I didn't know if anyone would care, and then we sold 5 in 1 week. Well, we'd only have 5 in 1 week because we knew it was going to be a hit.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I've lowered all the initial orders. Like, things that before I would have been like, oh, Diamond's not going to keep this in stock. Let me start with 3 or 4. Now it's like, let's start with 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But that's what you're saying, like the 1s and 2s.
Even the 1s and 2s are things where it's like, if this is not from a major publisher, if it's not First Second or Scholastic, if it's someone where we're like, this is like a book publisher that does some kid stuff.
I'm not naming names, but there's definitely 1 or 2 publishers that do a lot of all ages stuff that I just say no, never.
Right. I mean, and we each go through the catalog and circle stuff, and there's a lot of things like that where now I'm like, there's just too many pigs at the trough. There's just too many publishers that are now doing kid stuff and doing way more kid stuff. And some of it's feast or famine, where the weeks that we're talking about...
Comics. Too many pigs at the trough.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've seen overproduction like that in other parts of the market before.
Yeah.
Whatever the hot thing is, You know, when suddenly everyone was getting a movie deal, you had a billion publishers pop up that are just fast-tracking stuff for movie deals.
The weird part about this is because with the book market, everything is done a year to two in advance, that once everyone's like, oh my god, we need more all-ages stuff, they started planning for a year or two in advance, and now it's all starting to come out. It's like, this is too deep into the process.
Right, but again, the problem, I think, perception-wise for us is, again, it's a feast or famine thing where there are months in the year where everything comes out. Comics isn't really like that as much.
Yeah.
In the publishers tend to take like a 12-month view of things, and things have to come out every single month and every single quarter, as opposed to these are the big quarters and these are the small quarters, which is what book publishers do, and that's how they're looking at things. So for kids stuff specifically, they're targeting specific months where that's when kids are going back to school, or that's when kids are on break or whatever. And so, like, we'll get these weeks where it's like, Jesus Christ, there's like 15 kids books that came in this week. And then next week there's one. And then, you know, in the next month there were 10 in the entire month. And then the month after that there were like 40.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of stuff where it's easy to feel like maybe we're getting too much, and maybe we're not. But again, as the person who's moving this stuff around week to week, it's like,
I think
all these came in and they sat on the new this week shelf, and then no one bought them, and now they're going in the other room, and it's like, that's not great.
When we get to go through and prune the sidekick shelves like you want to, that you'll be a little bit happier with how everything looks.
Sure.
I hope.
I mean, prune? Was I going to prune?
I was going to prune.
Okay.
I mean, just stuff like, all those Hardaway books that we took out,
Sure.
when I put back in,
Yeah.
take them out again.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff that's been in that room for probably 5 years that is not sold. Because
Yeah.
we usually don't go through that room like we do the other shelves.
Correct. And I think we should.
Yeah, you're probably right.
There's other titles I have in mind, but I don't want
Yeah.
to point out. If you don't mind, I will have you ask your fifth question now.
Okay. I hope it's a good one. Oh, I think it is a good one. What are 3 things you think no store should ever do? Comic store, I should say. I mean,
sure. I assumed it was that.
I wasn't specific in my wording, so I thought I'd get that out there.
That's going to require some thought.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I don't like it when they're just playing baseball games or
Sure.
showing movies that aren't related to the comics industry.
Sure.
But I'm not going to say you shouldn't do it. I don't like store pets, but plenty of stores have
Plenty
them.
of stores.
I don't like the playpen in the middle of the store with the baby in it, but you know, sometimes you have no choice. I get it.
I guess. There's always behind the counter.
Overcharge. I don't think stores should arbitrarily pick prices for stuff.
Okay.
I don't think that. I don't know.
I think any of those are good. Any of those
I'm
are
not
valid
comfortable
answers.
telling people what no store should ever do. I'm only comfortable saying what challengers would never do.
Sure.
And those are like, we wouldn't like. Yeah.
Well, geez, Pastor, first thing I'm going to say is don't be racist.
You know what?
That up.
You know what?
Okay.
That was literally. I was going to be like,
I'm
aside
kidding.
from be racist.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean,
that goes without saying. That's not just something stores shouldn't do. That's something
murder your customers.
people shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Just in general in a society.
You know what? Hit on customers.
Yeah, boy, that's the thing that I can't do it. Even if you think that you're having a good conversation with someone, I think it's completely inappropriate.
Customers are allowed to hit on staff.
I don't know that I'm okay with that. I mean, like, I can say I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being hit on, but I don't like the idea of it being a rule where, like, you can hit on Gina. Like, you can't.
No, okay. I just meant that one. Mine was just for Kent's benefit.
Oh, sure.
I was literally just thinking about. Yeah, you're right. I definitely not. Like, if you go back to all the misconnections and that kind of nonsense.
Nope. That's going to probably get you a please don't come back to the store.
It's going to get me answering that email and not who you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I think it's inappropriate. I mean, maybe people have, over the years, met their spouses, you know, from one of them being a customer and one of them working at a store, but I would never, ever, like, it's not worth it to me to potentially meet somebody if I was also aware that people did not want to shop at the store because that was uncomfortable for them.
I mean, there's plenty of people that over the years I've hung out with outside of the store, gotten perhaps an adult beverage with, talked about comics of any gender.
Sure, friendships develop, sure.
Yeah, but that's a different thing.
That's not asking somebody out.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. This is one where I wrote it and did not have any answers for it, so I also have to kind of rack my brain a little bit. Yeah, I mean, in general, I think I meant it more in the sense that you were initially answering it, where it's like policies that you would warn people away from.
Yeah.
Because as a customer, you're not into it. I mean, the things, like, there's store aesthetic stuff where I'm like, don't do this.
Really profane music.
I don't like stores that bag and board their books on the shelves. I don't think stores should do that. I think not being able to look through a comic book is, to me, it's counterintuitive. I understand the reasoning behind it. I don't think it's helpful. The whole, like, it's not a library. Like, even Donny Cates made that joke in a pitch about crossover, and it's like, I mean, yes, someone coming in every week reading the books and walking away without buying them, yeah, that's not great. But you want people to browse. You want people, I mean, no one knows it. Like, take crossover, for example. I'm going to need people to flip through that book when it comes out because the cover is not going to sell it. They don't have any context for what this book is. You know, there's no movie trailer for it. There's no synopsis on the back.
Yeah.
You're going to have to flip through it to go, oh, this looks good. I want to read this. Like, I want people to be able to do that. I want them to be able to discover stuff, and they can't do that if it's in a bag and a board. Stick to your posted hours if you can. There's plenty of places I've been to, not even comic shops, where they've just decided to knock off early because they own the store, and it's like
Subway, dry cleaners.
Yeah, don't do that. Like, if you've got posted hours, if it's an emergency, fine, I get that. Post something on the door saying like there was an emergency. But if it's just like, nah, I don't want to be here right now, or nah, whatever, like, don't do that. When I say this as someone who occasionally comes to the store after 11 a.m. to open the store, so I understand the hypocrisy of it.
Do you know when they're open? You know what Toy de Jour's hours are? Noonish.
I've seen that on their sign before. Yeah. If the hair mechanic over on North Avenue has a very long, somewhat funny hours sign where they go into like very deep detail about like, Tuesday is this to this unless I'm doing this instead, and then it's this unless there's whatever, and so it's a lot of like qualifiers. So it's like, oh, the joke is like, do not depend on him sticking to his hours because he doesn't care.
So speaking of posted hours, I made the realization earlier this week that the business cards we've been handing out are the normal store hours, and I thought, oh, we should make pandemic hour business cards, which is basically just our business cards with just the changed hours.
Right.
So I did, and they showed up today.
Cool.
And as we were putting them out, all of the business cards that were on the red rack by the front door were the 2-store cards.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they were still... So people were taking cards that had a River North location as well.
I don't think they would end up going to River North, though. I think if they picked it up in Bucktown, they were like, I got to remember where this store is and what their hours are and what their phone number is.
The new cards are just still in the box. It says Pandemic Hours or Pandemic Biz cards in the box.
Sure. I'm trying to think of a third thing that I would warn people away from. I mean, beyond everything we've ever talked about on this podcast. I mean, one of the big things...
Openly ridiculing a book when there's people in the store because you don't know who's buying it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's one thing if you don't like a book, but to just start tearing into something, and certainly don't do it unprompted. If someone's just buying a book, don't go, oh, this is terrible. Like, don't do that.
And speaking of that, like, openly mocking customers, don't do that.
Oh, God, no. No, I mean, just that's never appropriate.
You can talk about them on your podcast after the fact.
Sure.
But not when they're there.
Yeah, that's what podcasts are for. I guess in general, like, going along those lines, like, we try and have a very welcoming atmosphere for our store. So, I mean, think about what sort of posters you're putting up in your store and how that's going to be viewed by people who maybe are not your regular clientele. Like, someone who doesn't have an affinity for your business or doesn't have any, like, stored up goodwill for you.
Yeah.
That is maybe going to judge you more harshly. So, you know, when you put a certain kind of poster up, like, that may be a turnoff for some people. So, like, really think about what you're displaying in your store.
Yeah, all good policies.
Yeah. There's 3-ish.
Okay. Are you ready for my final question?
I think so.
Will you carry on without me?
I would, yeah. Would you?
Okay. I don't know that I could.
Sure you could. Why couldn't you?
I don't know all the things you do.
So here's the thing about, like, what I do and why I think I'm getting the better end of this deal as far as how the division of labor goes. The things I do are maybe
taking it full circle.
The things I do are maybe additive to the business. I think they might improve aspects of our ability to serve our customers, but they're not mission critical. The stuff you do, the paying the bills, is mission critical. Like, that's stuff that I would have a very rough 3 to 5 weeks trying to figure out how that all worked, and hopefully the store would stay in business.
I meant, my question was more not like, hey, if I die.
Like
if I retire.
Sure. I mean, unless you were like bury me with the store, and
right.
then I'd be like, fine, we'll close it up.
Well, then it just becomes Dallinger's.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for me, it's yes to both answers. If you died, I would keep the store going. If you were like, and because this is something you had talked about doing a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like you had said 10 years, and then you were going to retire. And then we both realized that you would die in the gutter if you did that. So that was not a good choice.
No, that wasn't why I did that. It's because I was still...
Comics are as good as they've
and
ever
still
been.
am activated by comics.
Which is great. I'm glad for that. But the truth is you would die in the gutter.
No, I'll have you know, my cousin Janine has said I can go live with her whenever I want.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And plus I think there was a point where I was your +1 for living in your brother's basement. I think
he doesn't have a basement anymore.
Oh, god damn it! That got away from us.
No, you and I can live in Bob's crawl space.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But it is like, see where that shelf comes up?
Yeah,
it's like that space.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
I can make that work.
It's just gravel.
Fine.
Yeah, we can live in Bob's crawl space.
Oh, sweet. Okay, well, good to have that as an option. I'm glad we signed that 5-year extension.
Okay, but he's always going to be playing Beatles records down there.
That's fine. I got headphones.
Okay. There's no outlets in the crawl space.
It's not for listening to music.
Fair point.
But yeah, I would. It would not be the same, obviously. I mean,
without either of us, it wouldn't be the same.
It goes without saying that it would be an adjustment, emotionally and psychologically. But yeah, I would. You wouldn't?
Only if you didn't want me to.
No, I mean, there's certainly a version of this where there's an acrimonious split where there's no one to run the store.
There'd have to be somebody else because I'm not doing this all by myself.
Sure, and that's the thing. Like, if you're suggesting that like you couldn't do it on your own, like, A, I disagree with that, but B, I think there'd be any number of people that you could very quickly pick up for less than what I'm getting.
Until you asked Kent to work full time?
Kent would not be at the top of my list. He not because he couldn't do it,
just because you don't want to take him away from Doomco.
Yeah, I know that it would not be his passion. He does not want to be a full-time retail employee at a comic shop.
Those Doomcode signs aren't going to paint themselves. Yeah. You need those signs.
They're a pretty good signage company in Chicago. All vinyl.
All his signs are designed in Oculus Rift.
I can't believe you're thinking we have trouble sourcing vinyl signs when we've got Doomcode signs working in vinyl in our back pocket. I would...
I wonder if he hates that, or he's just happy we're talking about him.
I don't know, maybe. I mean, if you type in Doomcode signs, he'll come up on the internet.
That's right.
People will find him.
What is a Doomcode? Go to Doomcode signs and find out. Get your Doomcode sign now.
Use keyword challengers at Doomcode signs to get 15% off your first order. Does he want to sponsor the podcast? Does he have a budget for that?
I was going to point out that...
Should we do a fake Blue Chew commercial or whatever?
I would love to do that. The way David and Georgia Tennant do all of their...
I heard they were very funny.
Yeah.
They were very funny.
And
she's
of course,
a good sport.
She is. Well, I mean, I'm sure that podcast makes them a lot of money.
I hope so.
And it's the same way Tony Schiavone and Ruff Aubrey have a good, just drop-in commercial banter.
They do. It's funny.
But I was going to say that if this was in any way a sponsored podcast on a podcast network kind of thing, this would have been 2 episodes.
Oh, for sure.
Because you don't give...
I got to monetize this thing.
Yeah,
Come on.
You don't give people 2 hours for the same price.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Not even for an anniversary episode. Yeah, I would probably pick up somebody who's already kind of within the comics community who would be okay.
I think I know.
Yeah, I mean, you would probably pick up the same person.
I'd do the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It would be an adjustment, but I mean, that's when we were thinking about who a third person would be, they were on the list. So it's like, if there was only one of us, then they would just be the second person. And yeah, there would definitely be a few months of adjustment of either one of us figuring out how we would want to do the things the other person would do, but we'd figure it out. I mean, I do not doubt for a second that if something were to happen to me, that you would be unable to run the store in as good, if not better, a version than we do now.
I don't think better, but just to say different.
Sure.
Well, those are 5 questions that we each had.
We did them all.
I think that was actually a really great idea for an anniversary episode. I'd like to think each question represented 100 episodes of the podcast.
Probably. Well, what did you think of Amazing Spider-Man 600? What was the first episode? 500? 600?
Something? 750? No, it's only 850 now. I don't remember.
I don't know. That was the first episode. It was us talking about a recently released Spider-Man anniversary issue.
Yeah, I could drop it in, but...
What did you think of 49? You didn't read it yet,
I didn't read it yet.
Okay.
It's up there. It's on the spinner rack.
I'm so tired of the Sins Rising stuff, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it going dark occasionally, but it's just been so dark for so long.
Yeah.
and it's still more Sin Eater stuff, and now it's also Norman Osborn stuff, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I give me him and Boomerang getting into a bar fight.
You want
again. Give me that.
Spider-Man stuff.
I want lighter stuff. Like Nick Spencer's doing the Michelini stuff, and the Michelini stuff was not constantly dark all the time.
No. So somebody was looking for recommendations today, and the 3 books I pitched were
Batman 3 Jokers #2.
Of course.
That book got savaged by, I think, the AV Club.
Oh,
I think.
it was so good.
Yeah, which, I mean...
the review, I mean, not the book.
On the one hand, like, I'm all for it, because just in general, I don't have an interest in that book. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't know if I can even, like, praise this, because I did not read that book, and I will not read that book. So it's almost like it's wrong for me to, like, have that schadenfreude of, like, oh, I love this book getting taken to task. Like, I didn't read it. Maybe I would have liked it. I wouldn't have. I definitely would not have. But I don't know.
Well, we went too far away from my punchline of Dark Knight's Death Metal Multiverse's End.
No?
So the books,
sure.
the books were...
I think that was an okay one-shot. It's overly long.
Yeah.
But it's a decent one-shot. I like the art on it, and the character mix is pretty fun.
So the books I recommended were Department Truth.
Okay. Not Stillwater, because we're sold out.
Right. It would have been Stillwater for sure.
Sure. I got it. I'm sure they're sold out of that second print. I didn't order a lot because we had a bunch and now they're all gone.
Yeah.
And now we're getting like 3 copies of the second print, which ain't enough.
We had somebody buy a ton online.
I mean, a ton. It was like 6 copies.
Yeah, that's a lot. Man, I can't remember what else it was.
Department of Truth.
Right.
Black Widow?
No. 7 Secrets, #1.
Okay.
And Iron Man.
Okay, those are good ones.
Iron Man was the one that they're like, nah, I don't like Iron Man.
Oof, rough. I like that issue.
Yeah.
It's real good.
Yeah.
I remember when we got a bunch of extra copies of Iron Man #1, and it was I came in on, I think, a Thursday night or something to put them out and check that order in. And Kent was like, is there some error that we got all these extra copies of Iron Man? I'm like, no, we sold out, and it's really good, and we're going to push it. He's like, oh, okay. Like, he did not like it enough to consider it worth pushing, I guess, even hypothetically. Like, he couldn't even conceive of you or I being into it enough to push it. And it's like, I think it's real good.
Yeah.
I think it's very readable. It's very fun. I don't love the coloring, but, you know.
No, the coloring is way too dark. I mean, back, I think I already said this on a podcast. Back on Avengers Disassembled, Frank D'Amato was my favorite colorist.
Oh, man, that's when it was falling apart for me.
I loved what he was doing. And now it's like, God, you're too dark. For a book that's supposed to be lighter and funnier, the coloring does not match it at all.
No.
Bad choice.
Everything's like, it feels like everything is happening inside like a gentleman's supper club. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The Hellfire Club, really.
Yeah, everything's dimly lit and like hardwood and leather chairs.
But don't let that scare you off if you haven't read it. Iron Man #1.
The book is great. The coloring is not great. Yeah. But the story and the characters are really fun.
But also at the same time, hey, my ballot is being accepted. Nice. I just got that email popped up.
Sweet. I haven't worked on mine yet.
Oops. Mm-hmm. I think we've talked to people enough since this is over 2 hours. And
anniversary. It's got to be oversized.
Right. I mean, it's definitely good. If Marvel Comics has taught us anything,
sure,
we should charge extra for
this episode is $10. No matter what level of Patreon you were pledging at, congratulations. It's now
Oh, speaking of that, we had our first annual patron.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, one of our regular patrons, Jose Villagomez.
We got to do a year of this
Did the annual plan. Yeah. No, we don't. He's already been charged.
Oh, excellent. Okay, cool.
It's good enough.
If only we could switch everyone over, then we could just quit. And retire off of that sweet Patreon money.
Also, because we're recording this on October 9th, our Christmas cards came in today.
Oh, yeah? You like them?
Yeah.
I mean, I like the mock-up. Do you like the physical production?
Yeah, definitely. And even better, Gina liked it a lot.
Did she sign it?
Not yet. I told her. She's like, I'll start something. I'm like, you have months.
Okay.
I started with the pink pen.
Okay.
But I only did 15.
Okay.
Just see how it looked.
I'll probably do most of mine on Wednesday.
That's fine. I mean,
that's usually when I sign Christmas cards.
Plenty of time.
The end of the day on a Wednesday when I can just sit down and do it for an hour.
Yeah, we've never been this far ahead of the game.
That's great.
And last year, because we ordered 500 cards, and they always give us extra. Mm-hmm. And last year they gave us 700.
Oof.
And this year I'm like, I need a little more than 500, and it was only the increments you have to order is either 500 or 1,000 from our printer.
Uh-huh.
And the difference is $12.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no, I'll just do 500. They'll give us extra. And they gave us 50 extra.
Great.
It wasn't a ton extra.
That's great.
But we'll see. We may not. I don't know if we'll have enough. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see.
I had an idea. You know what? I'll stop right there. I did have an idea, but I don't think it's practical.
Okay. That's the best kind.
Congratulations on the 500th episode of this podcast.
Back at you.
You haven't been on all of them. I haven't been on all of them. We've been on most of them.
Yeah.
This podcast was... I never thought we'd be doing like 500 episodes, but I never thought we wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we did a run at it, and then we kind of got sick of it, and it was hard to do, and then we kind of quit for a minute. And then it was the idea of, like, what if it was just us talking about retail instead of us talking to people about comics? And then we suddenly found that we could do it for, like, 8 more years.
And the podcasts that inspired us, like the Crankcast, like Word Balloon, those are still going now, too.
Yeah.
So, why wouldn't podcasts go forever? And even Colt Command is the Art of Wrestling, who started a little bit after us and then kept going for a long time. He stopped, but now he's back.
Yeah.
So I think we finally have more episodes than him.
With the pandemic, a lot of people have come back to podcasts.
Well, I think for Colt specifically, he now has access to a whole new roster of people he hasn't talked to before.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, a lot of people were on like the indie circuits when he was on the indie circuits, but maybe they were in Japan or they were in whatever when he was not in Japan.
And then you have people like James Van Alstel and Carcon Carne, who is doing like an episode a day.
Yeesh.
So that dude is his.
Has he done that Wendy's pub burger yet?
I don't know, because at this point, Carcon Carne is everything. It's not just.
I figured.
And there's no eating in the car anymore because pandemic.
Sure.
He's not bringing anybody else into the car.
Okay.
But it's all Zoom chats, but it's with actors, directors, musicians, food people. Like it's literally everything. But so like his numbers have his episode numbers have risen dramatically, and he just had like episode 250 or something. Like he'll catch us up pretty soon.
Well, that's good.
But anyway, 500 episodes,
crazy.
And as far as we know, there'll at least be 501.
At least 501. There you go.
And that one's going to be called
a strong promise.
Buttonfly.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm ready for it.
Nice.
You want to record it now?
I'm just cutting this one in half.
What if podcasts were just every minute of every day? Forever.
There'd be a lot of toilet flushes.
Probably.
And a lot more profanity. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.